This episode is brought to you by Farm Bureau Financial Services, Zach Miller Agency. If you're looking for an insurance agent with a personal touch, someone willing to have the real conversations about what's important to you, assistance with submitting claims, and offering quality coverage options, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Zach Miller Agency may be the place for you. Whether you need home, auto, farm, commercial, life, or health insurance, we're here for you. Check us out at agentzachmiller.com. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agriculture Insurance Company.
You may recognize my next guest's voice. He's the general manager and host of the morning show on WJAG. Jeffrey, thanks for making time to be here today.
Oh man, I'm honored, and I love your digs here. This place is nicer than my studio downtown.
I think we need to get some panels on the wall so we can have the sound a little better. But
nice, man. And your chairs are actually comfortable.
Yeah, they're not too bad.
They make me stand downtown.
Yeah, nice little Wayfair special.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm Zach Miller with my co-host Vance Neidig.
Thanks for coming on, Jeffrey.
You betcha.
And we are touching base with Jeffrey Steffen today. We always like to get a little bit of background on everybody. So are you originally from Norfolk?
No, I grew up in Crofton. I haven't fallen too far away from the tree, but and I never really wanted to. And that was part of I guess a risk of getting into radio because we were told in college at the time that if you really wanted to make it, you had to go to the big time, you had to go to the big markets and all of that. And I really didn't want to do that, and I really was just doing it for fun. And quite frankly, when I came to Norfolk, and that was in December of 1986, the plan was, I told my mom, I said, I'm going to do this for about 5 years, and then I'm going to go get a real job. It just never seemed like a real job to me because it was so much fun, and I just kind of tripped on it. But I grew up in Crofton. Get back to your original question.
You're good.
Graduated in 1980. I'm the oldest of six.
Oh, I didn't realize that about you.
Yep.
Big family.
Yep. I have a sister in Yankton. She's married, runs her own beauty shop up there. Another sister lives in Sioux Falls, married. She runs her own beauty shop up there. Another sister, she and her husband, Mike, live in Sioux Falls. She's Carrie's a teacher by trade. Mike is an attorney. And then I have two brothers. My brother Steve he lives in Hardington. Owns Subways, owns one in Hardington, one up in South Dakota. Did own one in Laurel until he recently closed that location. And then Kurt, my youngest brother, he's still in Crofton. He works for the U.S. Postal Service.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice little gig there.
Yeah. Graduated in 1980.
Any activities or sports or anything? Were you a band guy?
Well, sports. I was marginal. Let's just say I was marginal. We sucked at sports back then. We couldn't beat anybody in football. We had a streak when I was in high school. This would have been the fall of 1976. We won our first football game. We beat Hardington High. And then we proceeded to lose 36 in a row.
Oof.
And I think that was a state record there for a while.
Makes it rough.
Then, thank you, Creighton Bulldogs. I think they peeled off 56 in a row sometime after that. And, and then we won our last game. Neely, beat them 8-3, our last game as seniors. And so at least we got the monkey off the back.
You got to go out with a win.
Yeah,
that
we
works.
You didn't have to just sit on that bad taste forever.
And I don't, we had good athletes, we had power lifters, but man, we just sucked at football. Basketball, we were, marginal, and that was more my sport. Basketball, and if I had to pick a favorite, it was by far baseball because we were good in baseball, quite good.
Crofton's always been pretty good at baseball.
Yeah, it's a baseball town. There's still town team baseball up there. The Crofton Blue Jays, they still play in it's a South Central League in South Dakota, and they've been playing ball since I think the 1940s.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and but I played American Legion ball, and we would always go deep into the postseason. Never quite made it to the state tournament. There was always one damn team a little bit better than us. But Yeah, those were the days. If I could go back and do anything over again, and if I were ever good enough to be a professional athlete, it absolutely would have been baseball.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of the sport to be in for some of these athletes because it's not as strenuous, I guess, if you want to call it that. I mean, the off
not
season
as
might be
hard on your body.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah, as certainly football,
right.
Even basketball, I think. But it's a long season.
Long season.
And but I don't know. To me, it just really appealed to me to go to Arizona or Florida in the middle of February when the weather sucked around here, play a little baseball, play the season. You're home in time for Christmas.
Is that your plan when you retire, just to be a snowbird? If
you
you
know,
ever retire?
That's a sore subject at my house. My wife and I have had conversations about that. I have dabbled in that. The last couple of years have gone down to Arizona and spent a week or two down there, and I could definitely get used to that.
I'm sure. Did you
Especially in the middle of January.
Oh, yeah.
How was
Those are the
your
worst.
college path? Did you go for journalism or radio?
Yeah, I had no idea when I went to college. I really didn't. You know, my dad ran a service station. Back then it was service stations. It wasn't even convenience stores yet. That transformation was just happening as I got out of high school. But my dad actually put up a new building and everything when I was a senior in high school. Was Steffen Service. It's still there. My dad, of course, we sold it off in 2006. My dad passed away in 2014. My mom is still alive. She's still in Crofton, still in the house that we grew up in.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. So that's what I did from the time I was old enough to pick up a broom and lean on a broom. I was sweeping the floor at the service station and learned to change oil and change tires. And it was hard work, but it was a ball because you met everybody in town. At some point, somebody would, they all came through but I learned during high school that I did not want to do that the rest of my life. And so that really kind of sealed my decision that I'm going to go to college. I want to learn to do something else.
Yeah.
And
Did you guys have the morning coffee break at your station there?
yeah, the farmers, they just come in and mooch coffee off of you. And
So you got to hear all the good stuff.
I'm going to tell you, you knew what was going on by 9 o'clock every morning. Or they would come in to find out. And, just beautiful people to grow up around, to hold you accountable, and just great role models. They just worked their butts off. And it was really hard in the 1980s to see the farm crisis just devastate the farming economy. There used to be 4 or 5 families on every section back in the day. And I remember those. My dad ran a tank wagon service. We hauled fuel to the farm. That's what I did when I was my summers in high school. I drove the fuel truck out and delivered fuel. But got to the end of high school, and I really didn't know where to go. I wasn't ready to go to college. Didn't really want to go to college. But the alternative was, working at the service station. And I don't think my dad didn't even want that for me. And so I kind of narrowed it down. University of Nebraska, a little too big. Northeast Technical Community College at that time.
Yep.
And I didn't really have a trade in mind, so I kind of set that aside. And I just remember one night we had a college night at our high school, and I went and listened to the guy from the University of Nebraska, and all he did was talk about the football team for a half an hour, and I'm sitting here thinking, biggest Big Red fan there is, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to beat out Mike Rozier. I'm pretty sure they're not going to offer me a scholarship. So
Yeah.
We just lost 36 games in a row. What are we talking about football for?
they're not going to be interested in a guy who's 2-36 in his high school career. So it was that night. I walked out of there and I thought to myself, oh God, okay, this is not the place for me. And walked over to this office, and I think his name was Kirk Hutton from Wayne State, and he invited me in. He wasn't getting much business that night, and I couldn't quite understand that. And he started asking me questions like, what do you want to do? I don't know. Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay. He says, you can come to Wayne State and you can go 2 years before you figure out what to do. All right. That guy had a point right there. He said, why don't we make out a schedule? So I said, well, I'm going to have to work on the weekends. I like working for my dad yet. So, I kind of want to get away on weekends. And He said, we can work that out. So he sat down and he worked out a student schedule for me, showed me pictures of the dorms, and all of his attention was on me. He didn't sell the college per se. He just told me what it was going to be like for me at Wayne State. And he just really appeared to really care about my college experience. And he was going to help me through that time where I was going to try to figure out what I was going to do. And so I walked out of there that night, got in the car with my mom, and I looked at her and I said, I'm going to Wayne State.
Decision was made right
there.
there.
It was just, it really was. And I think I learned, even for what I do today, because I have clients that I take care of. And we really preach and talk at the stations about relational selling. They buy me, they buy my sales team first. You have to develop a relationship with them. And once you do that, the rest of it's really, really easy.
Yeah, you got a great sales team, by the way.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they, I usually deflect all the credit to them. We've been really, really fortunate. We've almost turned the entire staff over. We've had such stick-to-itiveness. We've had people there 46 years, 42 years, 33 years, 28 years, and all those people all started retiring all at the same time. So within the last 5 years, we've almost completely turned over the entire staff. So I'm like the old guy.
Has that been a struggle at all? Or is it kind of nice having a fresh view?
I don't know if it's a struggle. It's scary. You know, that's a lot of wisdom that walks out of the door.
Right.
And that you can't replace wisdom. You can bring another body in there, and they can even have a little experience, but that wisdom that walks out the door, 46 years of wisdom, 42 years of wisdom, that's really hard to replace. And that's the difficult part. But we were having a staff meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and I told I asked the team, I said, raise your hand if you weren't here 5 years ago. And I'd say 60% of the hands went up. I said, raise your hand if you weren't here 7 years ago. And the rest of the hands went up. And I said, there you go, you guys. We've turned this entire team over in the last 6 or 7 years. And I brought it up because they all get a little uptight when somebody leaves, because that means a new person is going to come in. We're really particular about our culture. We want it to be a family atmosphere. And I told them, I said, it always works out. The good Lord will always, if you follow His ways, He will always reward you. And it always turns out we're fine. The station's been here for 103 years, so
In the grand scheme of it, you're all new.
we are.
I mean,
Yeah.
We are.
your
Yeah.
staff.
But if you want to feel old, work at a radio station where somebody's been there for 46 years. And it's Marcy Pierce. She was our office manager, and 46 years. And I said, Marcy, you were here for 46 of the 100.
Right? Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah. Almost half the time. Wow.
Yeah.
Wild to think about.
Yeah, it is.
That is crazy. So Wayne State.
Yeah.
So you went, I'm assuming you just kind of started in generals of some
Right.
sort. And
Yeah.
then, so how did you get a degree in radio there?
So, yeah, that first year I just tried to figure out how to be a college student. One of the really cool things I remember is it was really a teacher's college. So you're talking about the fall of 1980. Wayne State was really a teacher's college and a business college. So with teachers, there were a lot of females on campus.
Yep.
It was 3 to 1.
Yep.
3 women for every
Was that one of the
guy.
selling points from the?
He did not bring that up. I found that out when I got there, and I'm like, wow, I'm
Coulda
really
led
going to
with this.
like it here. I'm going to really like this here. And it was a great experience. I would go back and do that 4 years over again in a snap. It was just a super time. Yeah. So I just kind of did the general thing. And one night I was down in the basement of the Val Peterson Fine Arts Building, and I walked into a room. I walked into the wrong room, and I walked into the campus radio station's production facility, and there's this guy sitting at a production board, and I said, geez, I'm sorry I walked in. No, come on in. And I thought, wow, this is all cool. And he showed me all the switches and the knobs and the big microphone. I thought, wow, this looks like fun. And so I had a conversation with him probably for, I don't know, about a half an hour or so. And he goes, hey, why don't you take a class next semester and just kind of test it out? So I took a radio production 1 class the second semester of my first year. And then I found out in that class that, if you come back next fall, You can take a radio workshop, and then you get on the campus station. And I thought, well, I'm going to give that a shot.
That's pretty quick to be able to just get right on.
Yeah, it was fun, but man, back in the day, we had so many kids. You were lucky to get about a 2 or 3 hour shot, and I think my first show was Monday nights at 11 o'clock from 11 until 2 a.m. And I wanted to be on that late because I figure there can't be more than 3 people listening here. And so if I suck, nobody will know.
Right.
So yeah, it just kind of took off from there, and I did want to come out with some kind of a business degree. So I actually have a bachelor's of science degree in broadcast communications and a business administration minor. And here I am running a radio station.
There
so it
you
worked
go.
out, I guess.
It did work out in the end, right?
Yeah, it did.
Do you think college, even today's time, is still a good thing for kids to pursue? Like, you know how it's such a big push in the last 20 years. Do you think it's still a thing that most?
I think post-secondary education is really important, but I think the real need right now are the services and electricians, plumbers, things like that. That's what we really, really need. And I'm not so sure kids need, at least right off the bat, they don't need a 4-year college experience. Now, look, I'm not throwing that under the bus by any stretch of the imagination, because I have 2 daughters who are registered nurses, and they had that college experience. But my twin boys, they didn't really particularly care for school. But I told them, I said, not going to college is not an option. Look, you got to do at least a year and figure some things out. Well, one of them is a contract electrician now, and lives here. They just turned 30 years old. My twin boys, they both own their own homes, and they don't owe a college a thin dime. They work their way. Worked at Lou's Thrifty Way, Burger King, earned money, paid their way, got a scholarship here and there. Lucas is an electrician. Landon has a Class A driver's license. He's also got a welding degree. He works for the State Department of Roads, and he has a side hustle. He drives a motor coach, and so he makes a nice scratch on the weekends driving. He might haul a sports team to a football game or something like that. And
that's great.
So, and it's student debt is just crushing a generation. And I think it's just really, really important for kids to just stop and say, you know what? I'm going to go 2 years and I'm going to learn a trade. You got plenty of time to go back to school. Man, go learn a trade, because if you can learn how to be a plumber or an electrician, mechanic or something like that, man, you are going to make some serious bank and scratch. I've got a nephew who's an HVAC guy, moved to, he was in Lincoln, got married, wanted to be a little closer to home. He grew up in Hardington. Now he's in Norfolk, working here as an HVAC guy, making a good living.
There's a lot of money in it. And we talk about the trades on this show a lot too, because, you said the debt, it's a big thing for people. If you don't know what you want to do, go learn a trade.
We kind of brought it up on, I don't remember I don't remember whose podcast, but like if you take your school debt, do that on starting a business or starting your vehicles or your tools, stuff like that, you're going to immediately recoup that money or repay that back. So, and I like where you're at, like give it a year. That's kind of a cool concept too. Just your gap year, so to speak.
Sure. Why not go give it a whirl? And you'll always have something to fall back on. Like I say, you can always go back to college. We always kind of had this rule around our house. My wife, Amy, and I were the mean mom and dad. We didn't pay for our kids' college education, and they knew all the way up that mom and dad were not going to pay for your college education. You got to figure it out.
Right.
Either work your way through scholarships or, take out loans. So you'd be amazed at how their decision-making process changes when they got to pay that bill, and they come out on the other side, I think, with a different kind of appreciation for the dollar. They know what a dollar costs and what it takes to earn a dollar.
Well, and it sounds like they all turned out pretty well. So I think your
so
philosophy
far,
was good.
None of them are in jail yet, so I think we're good. Well, I told my daughters as they approached nursing, I said, look, I really would like you to stay here. But if you get a nursing degree And here's the other thing too. They both went off to college. One went to Wayne State. The other went to the University of South Dakota. And they do pre-nursing for 2 years, and then you apply for nursing school. They both ended up at the University of Nebraska Medical Center in Norfolk. And I said, okay, now you can move back in with mom and dad for 2 years. You study your butt off. Mom and dad will take care of the food and shelter for you. That's our contribution. You study your butt off. You become a registered nurse. And then when mom and dad are like 80 years old and in a wheelchair, you're going to move back home again, and you're going to take care of us.
Right. Then it's your turn.
Then it's your turn. But I said, you can go anywhere. You can live anywhere. And Andrea and her husband, Thomas Tucker, they live up in Pierce. They're growing a family already. And but Cassidy, my middle daughter, she is the world traveler. And I mean that. But she got a nursing degree. She lives in Denver. Somehow she got her employer to give, she and some friends, to give them 2 months off to travel to Asia.
Oh my gosh.
Now, how do you suppose that went over with Jeffrey and
Probably not very good.
Mom? Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what? Yeah. It was Labor Day of 2023. She and 3 other girls flew to Hawaii. They all met in Hawaii, spent maybe a couple of days there, off to Thailand and wherever until the end of October.
Really?
I told her, I said, do not ever find yourself alone. You know, always be in pairs or something like that. There was about 2 weeks left in their trip, and there was some kind of a disagreement in the group about where to go next, and Cassidy just had it in her mind, I want to go here, wherever that was. I don't remember what it was. So she broke off from the group. And so you have a daughter all alone somewhere in Asia.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And she's planning on doing it again. So, but I told her, I said, you know, this is great. God love you for it. But you honor that employer of yours who gave you 2 months off.
Right.
Don't you dare come back now and quit your job.
Right.
You make sure that you give them another year or two before you move on again.
Right.
So
it wasn't paid, was it? Paid 2 months?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was like, whoa.
No. And so, but I've learned that it's really cheap to travel in that part of the world.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She got food poisoning twice, and
That's part of it, yeah.
yeah, and you're not in Kansas anymore.
Mm-mm.
That's what happens. So yeah,
Got to watch out for those pangolins.
Yeah. Don't eat the bats.
I don't know what she was eating, but I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, kids, right? But the nest is empty now. The youngest is Audrey, and she is becoming a radiology tech, and she's in Lincoln.
They're all just going to take care of you and your wife.
I think we got it pretty much made in the shade. We got a driver to drive us everywhere we go. If the electrician, you know, he always comes in handy. And we got 2 nurses and a radiology tech. So I'm not sure what else I need.
No, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think you'll be fine. I think you'll be living at home
We're pretty
till you
good.
pass away.
Pretty good, yeah. I can go to Arizona for a few years, and then I can't swing the golf club and come home. And,
It's time for you guys to start taking care of me.
yeah,
I'm done.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we live adjacent to a cemetery too, so I mean, it's just a short walk.
You're just right there.
It's right over here.
Dig
go
the
dig the
hole, and
hole.
the old man can take the dirt nap. And
I will walk to my grave.
yeah, one of you can move into the house and you just wave at me every morning.
Oh, that's great. That is great. So after college, you said 1986 is when you came to WJAG.
Yeah, so I went toward the end of my junior year. That was the deal, you know. All of us radio students at Wayne State back in the day, man, we were doing everything we could to get a part-time gig. You know, I applied over at I applied at KNEN here in Norfolk. Applied at a couple of stations up in Yankton, and I had a buddy who was already working at KTCH in Wayne. And I came back from Easter break at the end of my junior year, and I literally walked into my room, and he comes up and he goes, "Get in the car. Get in the car right now." I said, "Where are we going?" And he drives me out to the radio station, introduces me to Dan Badorf, who is the production or the operations manager there. He said, we got a part-time position here, and my buddy wanted me to have it, and so it worked out. So I started working part-time there that spring, stayed in Wayne that summer, and then in July, there was a turnover. The morning guy wanted to be sports director. Sports director was moving into sales. So that opened up the morning show, and that's where the whole thing started. The boss, Dean Cron, came to me and said, hey, how would you like to do mornings? Like full-time? And he said, yeah, it'd be a full-time gig. And I'm like, I have another year of college left. I'd kind of like to just finish the degree now. And he goes, that's okay. We'll work with you. But just come here, work in the morning, classes in the afternoon. And so I worked full-time at KTCH through my senior year.
Wow.
And then I ended up staying there about another 2 years. I think spring of 86. And you just kind of get to that. I think everybody kind of gets to that point in their life or a time in their life where they're, okay, it's time for a change. I'd been in Wayne for 6 years. And so I got a call from a guy by the name of Ron Cruz down in Columbus. And at the time, the radio setup down there wasn't what it is today, but it was KWMG, which is now the Hawk, I think. And the other station, there was an AM station, KTTT. So they were looking for a morning guy on their FM, and I thought, it's time for a move. So I moved down there in April of 86, I think it was. Worked down Columbus for a short time, and then WJAG came a-calling. Mark Smith called me up. And his brother was Dwayne Smith, who was one of my best friends in college. And I don't ever remember Dwayne telling me that, my brother works at the radio station over in Norfolk.
Just
like,
seemed
Jesus,
to leave that one out.
You never mentioned that once? All that drinking I did
It
with
just
you?
slipped my mind.
This is what I'm going to school for.
Brother might be hiring. Oh, no. He goes, yeah, I'm Dwayne's brother. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So anyway, off we go. I went up there and talked to him, and when I walked into the building, I thought, oh, wow, this is cool. Everybody was so welcoming. Rob Thomas was the general manager at the time, and he and I had a nice visit. I think I came back for a second visit, and then they made an offer. They wanted me to come up and do mornings on KEXL, which at that time was on 106.7. They felt as though their market position was not favorable up against KNEN. And because KNN had just come on the air in like 1979, and there was nobody playing adult contemporary music on the FM dial. There were very few stations doing that yet. KNN was, and they stormed into the market, and so they were looking to get a piece of that pie back, and they wanted somebody to come in and do a morning show that would kind of stir up the market. And so I thought that sounded like a fun challenge. And so after just a short time in Columbus, I moved up to Norfolk then at the end of 86. And so I was going to just do 5 years and then go get a real job. And here I am.
Here you are. So you started on the KEXL side?
Yeah. And that was the job. I was morning guy, and they had me doing a little gig in the middle of the day on WJAG. So Don Kramer, who was sports director at the time, could go home for lunch. So get off the morning show. You got to do noon hour on JAG because Don's got to go take lunch. I'm like, Don was royalty to me. I'm like, absolutely, I'll do anything for Don
good.
Kramer.
That's
You bet,
funny.
man. I'll handle that. And so I got to read the funerals. That was interesting. And man, I'll tell you what, you wanna tick somebody off, mispronounce some dead guy's name, because you'll hear from the family.
I'm so
back
bad
then.
at names. That's
Yeah.
why.
Especially back then on WJG, who was
Yeah.
listening on that side. Because that was my grandma listening on that type
Yeah.
of stuff. I know
That
those
was-
type of people.
Was
Yeah.
a big deal. That was a big. It still is today.
Yeah.
People want that information, but yeah. So off we went, and so it went pretty well.
So
I
that
would say.
start was more of like you were doing music along with, like you call it the morning show, but it's not like, because now you're doing news on WJG.
News
now.
talk, yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was more, how did you put together a show for that? Was it like you had to come up with some
Oh yeah,
funny
yeah. It was
moments, or?
probably inspired by Rick Dees at the time. Rick Dees had just started his weekly top 40 in the early 80s, and I listened to this guy, And he was doing radio unlike anybody I had ever heard do. It was the early part of what they referred to in the business as the morning zoo. You'd find a funny guy or two and get him on the air and just have a whole lot of fun, do some wacky stuff. And Dee's always did this. His wife, Julie, is a world-class impressionist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so she would do a lot of voices on his show, and I could tell Dee's was doing some of the voices as well. But it was just he'd have these cast of characters that would call in on his show, and he'd work them into his weekly top 40. And I thought, that is funny, man. And so that's when I started to try to develop some of these other characters, because it was just me. I didn't have a sidekick back in those days. I just kind of had to make do. So I started coming up with some of these characters, and I don't know where they came from. They might have been inspired by other things that I heard, but I had Vinny. Hey, Vinny, he's kind of doing the Rocky thing back then. He would call his Devin as a going, this he is Vinny. And I would just like to say to all you folks out there in Radio Land, yo. So Vinny became a character. Then there was, I don't know if I can do these voices anymore.
It's been a while.
Early engineer. Early engineer, he would stop by and he would always, there's a loose wire. Ah! He'd always get shocked, and it wouldn't matter what he would say or the bit. People just waited to hear him get shocked.
Right.
So he'd always shock himself. That was kind of the trademark. And then I got onto the presidents, and
you can do some presidents, huh?
well, yes, I can. Back in 1986, Ronald Wilson Reagan. That was really easy. Reagan was really easy to do. But man, was he a load of fun. And then after him became the first George Bush. And Reagan was so easy to do. I didn't quite know how to do Bush. I didn't know how to do Clinton either. And the way I figured out how to do these voices would be to listen to other impressionists do the voices, to see how other impressionists did their voices.
Right.
So Frank Caliendo is just awesome. I had an opportunity to interview him last year before the Great American Comedy Festival. Oh man, what a hoot that was.
I bet.
To hear him, I mean, just go from one voice to the other. It was just amazing.
So fast too.
Yeah, so fast, just on a dime. And so I don't think I was very good at it, but once an impression is a really good listener, and they will find that characteristic that sets that voice apart. They don't even necessarily sound like like Donald Trump. You don't really have to sound like Donald Trump if you just get the cadence down.
If you get the cadence and the hands and the I hear that.
Yeah. Putin, are you listening? So, yeah, once that that was kind of my secret. So, George H.W. Bush, Bush 41. Probably the funniest moment I had with him is there was a time I actually left the radio station. I was there from 86 until 1991. And like I said, I was going to do it 5 years, and then I was going to go get a real job. So it was time to go get a real job. And I took this sales job with Frito-Lay, and I left. And I left in January of 91, or it was somewhere in there. And I don't know if you guys remember what happened in January of 1991.
I was 6, so
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah. Thanks. Good.
He was younger.
Were you guys alive yet? So the first Middle East war broke out.
Okay.
And I was only gone 3 months. The job that they actually hired me to do fell through. Corporately, it didn't come about. So they hired me to have this sales route, and then it fell through. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, they didn't let me go. They started sending me to Timbuktu to cover this guy and cover for that guy. And I'm like, oh, man, this is not what I signed up for. So I ran into Rob Thomas one day up at the Y, and he asked me how things were going. I told him what had happened, and didn't think much of it. And about 2 days later, Rob called me back, and he goes, you want to come back?
Yes, please.
Yeah, likely. Let me give that some thought, and so we thought about it, and I said, I'm not going to run anybody else out of there, because I said, I'm not going to cost somebody a job.
Right.
And, so back I came, and so it was March, and if you remember, the first Gulf War was very short. It was just a month or two, and so my first day back was I think sometime in April of 1986. And right away, the president called. Jeffrey, where the hell you been? Missed a hell of a war. And to this day, how many years ago has that been? I still have people walk up to me and say, Jeffrey, you missed a hell of a war.
Jeez. That's funny. That's funny.
And I never even there were a lot of people who thought that I was in the National Guard and that I was actually in the Middle East fighting the war.
Fighting the war.
No, man, I was selling potato chips. I wasn't launching grenades, just Tostitos.
That's funny. Those impressions are pretty good, though.
Well, the next one was Bill Clinton, and he
too.
was a little tough to do as well until I heard somebody else do the voice, and he'd call up in the morning, and there'd usually be a giggly, bimbo in the background or something like that. And, oh, my gosh, I got a horrible headache this morning. What happened? You drinking again? Oh, no, Hillary came home early. Haymaker right between the eyes.
That's funny.
Well, and people couldn't figure out, how can that be your voice? Like, how can you be talking? Because sometimes the voices would cross over.
Right.
Oh, that's just a little production trick. But, back in the day, that was before the digital age, you'd have reel-to-reels. And so the bits would kind of write themselves just based on what was going on in the world. But I would always write them backwards. So I'd know what the funny was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I would just write backwards from that. And then so I'd go into the production room and you'd roll a reel-to-reel tape recording and you do the president's voice. And then you'd pause. And then you'd just deliver the president's lines. And then you rewind the tape. And then basically I just have this conversation with this voice on the reel-to-reel tape.
With yourself, yeah.
With myself. And people are like, how can you talk over your own voice? And, well, that's just the magic of radio. But
Yeah.
that was fun. And the bits were really short. I had somebody who in the business that said the longer a bit goes, the funnier it better be. Because if you make somebody wait through a 3 or 4 minute bit and then there's no payoff at the end, they're going to be really unforgiving. So they were easy to write, easy to do, fun to do. I kind of missed that part of it, but not being on the music stations. But yeah, that was always fun. I don't know that there was really a president's voice that I didn't at least have a shot at. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we had another Bush after Clinton. And let's see, that was Bush 43. Jeffrey. George W. Bush, President of the United States of America.
You got pretty good at these. I'll give you that.
I don't
give yourself enough credit.
Let's see. Who came after him?
Barack.
Oh, Barack Hussein Obama. Well, Jeffrey, we must work very hard. We must work very hard to defeat the evil orange man. Cannot allow the evil orange man to come into the White House. And I didn't do him as much, but it took me a while to get his voice. But
His cadence is a little different too.
very much so. Yeah, very much so. I don't know if I ever really mastered that, but
You did pretty good right there.
Actually, I think I've gotten better at it. I don't do it on the air, but I've gotten better at it because I find myself just doing these voices and
Just having conversations with
having
yourself.
conversations with myself, and
I'm kind of that way too.
the wife's on the phone. I think I need to call for help here.
Get him back on his long show. He needs to get this stuff out. He's obviously not spending enough time on the
my husband
radio.
has split personality disorder.
I never had, just until recently with all the new technology, like your setup here, I have a very small studio, nothing like this at home. So I can do production work at home uninterrupted. But that's got to sound really weird to my wife out in the living room when I'm in there, laying down a track for a commercial or something like that. Like a Mid-City Superstore. It's this week's sale of the century.
I can only imagine. My wife gets mad at me too because I'll start recording stuff in here and she's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
I'll just start randomly trying to change the auto tune on here and try to sing like T-Pain or something.
Yeah. You just kind of get into it. But yeah. I love the guys at Mid-City, by the way. Love them.
They're good people.
Yeah,
good people. You can get a little funny on the news show though. I hear you crack a few jokes here and there. Maybe not quite doing the impressions and stuff, but I listen to you every morning.
Oh, you put yourself through that. Well, I appreciate that.
At least in the car ride to take my kids to school anyway.
Yeah. It's a process to kind of figure out just what I want it to be. I try to bring people. I try to make it community-based, work really hard at that. There's only 2 hours there, so there's only just a couple of slots there where that works. The early hour, Paul Hughes and I kind of do a segment together. It could be a lot of things. We could be talking about just whatever, and a lot of that's just unrehearsed. I'll have a couple of subjects that we'll just throw out, and we'll talk. We might talk about the Kansas City Royals one day. We might be talking about tariffs the next day, and Donald Trump the next day, or whatever. And a good friend of mine, Keith Kuby, joins me twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:40. Keith has quite a background. He's from Crofton. Grew up a mile from where my dad grew up from. And so Keith's very politically motivated. He's worked all over the country. He lived in Wisconsin for several years, lived in San Francisco for about 25 years, got plugged into the political machine out there. So really understands how that all goes. And so he's a guest twice weekly, and people really, really enjoy it. It's only about 10 minutes or so, but there are things that I think he is very right on, not to pivot into politics yet. We can maybe get to that. But when something happens in government, it doesn't often happen for the reasons that you think it happens. Even if you're in favor of it, even if you're happy, it probably didn't happen for the reasons that you thought it did.
Probably.
And so Keith has helped me really see the light in how Washington operates. And what we're watching now is Donald Trump take that apart. And that's why everybody in Washington, D.C., Democrats and Republicans, Republicans don't show it as much as the Democrats are.
Some of them do.
They are having kittens. They are having kittens because he is taking apart that structure, and it needs to be taken apart.
He's taking away the dog's chew toy is what he's doing.
Yeah. He's raiding their candy store. Yeah. You can't have this candy anymore. We're taking it back, and we're giving it back. And, boy, I don't know how far he's going to get, but it is really, really eye-opening, and it's really enjoyable to watch.
Makes good content, too.
Oh, yeah. There's never a day, and he is such a master at this, and that's the other thing people don't understand about him. He'll just throw these bombs out there like the other day. Well, we're thinking about third term. thinking about a third term.
We're gonna get the news cycle off of Signal Gate, and we're gonna talk about third term.
That's what he does when there's something that he doesn't want to talk about. He'll throw a bomb out there, and they all just chase it like a dog, in the yard. Third term. No.
What did he say?
What did he say? Well, we're not sure. They're telling me there's a way, so we're looking into that. And it's like that. And they chase it.
They lap it up. Yep.
Yeah.
And it works every time. I
it
love
does.
it. It's enjoyable to watch the
entertainment value of this guy. I mean, he's
a world-class entertainer, always has been.
Yeah. Right. That was
the guy's actually funny too.
Yeah.
Extremely funny.
Oh, and compare that to what we just went through for the last 4 years.
I mean, he was funny in a different way.
Yeah, he was.
Made you feel bad. But
you laughed at him,
not with him.
You didn't. You don't laugh at Trump. You laugh with him. You laughed at Biden.
I mean, you got to laugh at a guy that falls up the stairs. You have to.
Yeah,
you have to.
Has anybody seen him since January 20th? I'm starting to worry about him.
He was on a beach somewhere asleep. I don't know. That's the last I saw him.
At the going up the stairs. It's the walking into the hedges. Just walking off, like no idea where you're going.
There are going to be some great books. There already are some great books out from people who were around him for the last 4 years, and it should scare the bejeebers out of it. I think it is I think it's one of the biggest scandals in the history of the United States of America that we had a man elected to the highest office in the country, and he didn't even know where the men's room was.
Yeah.
Signed all of these orders using an auto pen.
Yep.
The real question is who was really running the country for the last 4 years, because we all have eyes and ears, and we can see and know unequivocally that he did not have the faculties to be holding that office. And if there was ever an argument for the 25th Amendment, he's a walking illustration of it.
Correct.
But we couldn't get anybody on board with that.
No.
But we did know who our chance behind that was, and we probably didn't want that either.
No.
The backup was no better.
No.
Oh, well, that's
she was
why
probably scarier.
they
in all
even
honesty.
knew that. They even knew that. It's like, who we got? Joe. Get some IVs in him this morning. We just got to get him to the finish line, and then we'll just kind of see
He's just got to stand up. That's all we
where
gotta get him
that
to stand
goes.
up.
He's got to have a pulse. Just give him
Yeah.
a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of getting back to the radio a little bit. What has been the most rewarding part of your radio career so far?
Oh man, just the people that you get to know, whereas if you were doing something else, you might not. I mean, I've gotten to meet some pretty famous people, even if just over the phone. That's been fun. The rewarding part for me is helping businesses be successful. I asked our staff probably a couple of years ago. I've been general manager now 10 years this month.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's wild. Congratulations.
Well, thanks. Didn't know if it would go that well. But I asked our staff, and it's a good question for any business to ask, what business are we in? So if I asked you, what business is McDonald's in? People would say, well, they're in the restaurant business. No, they're not. McDonald's is in the real estate business.
Yeah.
Watch the movie The Founder, because they illustrate that. And so I just asked my staff, I said, what business are we in? And they kind of looked at me like, is this a trick question? No, what business? And I had great answers like, we're in the entertainment business, we're in the news business, and all of that was true. But I said, that's not really the business that we're in. We are in the marketing business, and that's what we do. All of those other things that you mentioned get us to that end. So all of the decisions that we make have to be based on, is that going to generate business? Is that going to generate revenue? And if it does, we're going to do it. People will ask us sometimes why we're covering certain basketball teams in the state tournament. The sports director might come to me and say, I want to do this game because this is going to be a really good close game. And I'll see another game over here that it might not be a really good game, but I know that we can probably sell more sponsorships on this other game.
Right.
And that team has probably got a better opportunity to go deeper into, postseason. So that's what we're going to go with.
Yep.
And so that's, sadly, maybe that doesn't that might upset people, but that's really the reality of it.
Well, you're still a business at the end of the day.
You are a business, so you have to understand that. And in the digital world now, there's all these new platforms, which we also offer as well. We on top of radio, we can do the digital thing either on our sites or on others, push to other sites. We have all those tools in our tool belt. So
That's good.
And radio's reach is still unmatched by anything. That's I think digital, social media, all of that. It's great. They're all tools. I've seen some businesses go full force into social media and dump traditional media. Television, and we have television here in town. We have newspaper. We obviously have radio, and I've watched their business slide backwards. You still can't beat radio for reach. Radio still reaches 93% of the American population every week. They listen to their local AM/FM radio, and of audio streamed, I want to make sure I'm right on this, but I think it's about 47%, it might be higher. 47% of all streamed audio is local radio.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
The reason that radio listenership has gone up in the last 30 years, that sounds like a trick question. If I asked somebody, I asked a group of people this just a couple of weeks ago, speaking to a group, and I said, if I asked you, were more people listening to the radio 30 years ago or today, what would you say? Most people would say, well, probably 30 years ago. No, there's more people listening now than were 30 years ago. So how can that be? Because with all of these devices that have come along, radio is more accessible than it's ever been before. Even though there are not traditional radios in the homes anymore, you ask people, do you have a radio in the house? They'll say, no. Do you have a smart speaker? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's how they listen. Matter of fact, in-home listening has gone up over the last 5 to 7 years because of the smart speaker. Our industry has been really good about staying there, and that's why we're having kittens over car companies trying to take AM radio off the dashboard. But what they found out in the hard way is that I think it was Ford. Was it Ford who was trying to take AM off the dashboard?
Right,
they found out that 6 in 10 people, if they were told that before they bought the vehicle, that AM was not going to be, they wouldn't buy the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So 60% said, I'm not going to buy a vehicle that doesn't have AM radio in it. And so that speaks to its reach. AM radio. People forget that in where we live out here, internet is still real sketchy. If you have a national emergency or severe weather, if you have crappy internet, you can have the best, latest iPhone there is.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to listen to anything. So the emergency broadcast system, if the president has to speak to the nation lickety-split, that's what the emergency broadcast station is. Well, the whole backbone and foundation of that is our AM radio stations.
Right.
And they just have such reach. So anyway, the original question was, what do I enjoy most about it? I've grown to enjoy the business side of it. But it was just, I always just feel blessed that I got to do something that was so enjoyable. And I always tell young people, find something that you're passionate about and that you really enjoy. You'll never have to work a day in your life. And I'm 63 years old now. I'm going to be 63 here shortly. And I'd have never imagined I'd still be doing this. It's going to be 40 years.
You're coming up there. That's good, though. That's good. What's the most important lesson that you've learned in broadcasting?
Man. Treating, respect the audience. Never talk down to the audience. Always respect the audience and bring them along with you. Talk to them one-on-one. That's the thing that I enjoy most about radio is it's just me and the person standing in front of the mirror. They just got up in the morning and when you get that part of it, that you're just talking to one person, you're not talking to thousands, you're just talking to one person, and always respect that and respect them, respect their time, and just don't talk down to them. And you'll always be good. I can remember people ask me sometimes what my most memorable days were on the air. I could probably point to two. One of them, of course, was 9/11 because that happened while we were still on the air in the morning. And, of course, we're trying to figure out what the heck was going on.
Right.
But you still feel detached from something like that because it was still half a country away. You felt for those people. You were enraged. But the U.S. Bank murders were almost a calendar, I think it was a full calendar year after 9/11.
Yep.
And I always thought that was our 9/11 because that's when the community kind of lost its virginity. We didn't lock our doors. We didn't lock our car doors. We left the keys in the car and,
Mm-hmm. That was the moment that kind of all changed.
Yeah, not after that. I mean, that was evil personified coming into our community and taking those innocent lives away who all they did was come to work that morning, and they were just cut down like that. And so the next morning, Jeffrey's got to get on the air and do the wake up show. And God, what do you say to a community that was grieving, which we were? I'm not even sure I remember what I said, but something like I came out of that first song, and it's like, I don't feel like being funny today. I'm not going to be funny. And I think I just kind of poured my heart out. And people then started responding. Then the phone calls started rolling in, and people just wanted to talk. And so you just let them talk. So I think those that day in particular is the one that I probably remember the most. And Jim Curry was our news director, and when that story was breaking, he he grabbed his microphone and his cassette player. He goes, "I'm heading down to U.S. Bank." We had heard that there was a bank robbery in progress, and I remember him walking into the studio. He says, I got to go down there. He goes, "It sounds like there's multiple people dead," and we're like, "No way, not Norfolk, Nebraska."
Right.
So those were really, really difficult days, and then to also understand that you can save lives in this business. I tell young people coming in, the most important thing that you'll do is severe weather coverage.
Right.
That's still a really important thing. Everybody's got a phone now. Of course, you're armed with a lot more information, but still to have our meteorologists from weatherology on the air with us breaking all that down, it's cool. So, I would say that's probably what's most rewarding, being a part of those things and being a voice for your community. And trying to reflect your community. I think we have great radio stations in this town, and most radio stations nowadays are corporately owned. And for a town this size to have 2 local ownership groups, 5 great radio stations, I hope people in this community and this area understand how blessed they are to have that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think you guys all do a pretty dang good job.
They're all different formats, different ways of delivery and everything, but there's good variety, but it's all so locally based. It's, it starts local.
Definitely. What was there ever a moment you considered leaving radio, and what kept you going?
Oh, I did twice. I left 5 years to go sell chips.
Yep, I remember that one.
And I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. I don't think I've ever told anybody this publicly, but
well, we only get like a couple listeners, so it's okay.
Okay, all right. All right.
Only the one person in front of their mirror.
For you 2 listening, I actually 10 years ago this month, March, I resigned. I'll be careful how I say this because I don't want to mislead anybody.
Mm-hmm.
January of 2015, I just was at a point in my life where maybe I want to go try something else. I wasn't unhappy, but it's like, man, Steffen, you're 53. This is all you've ever done. I'd like to find out if I could do something else. And I always thought that at some point, somebody else might approach me about something, and I did get calls from other markets. I almost moved to Sioux Falls in the mid '90s. I talked to a station up there, and that's probably about the only place I would have gone other than Norfolk. But I thought, okay, if you're going to do this, then you're going to have to pursue. And so I did send out a resume or 2, and to my surprise, I got a call back one day, and I won't tell you who it was or anything like that, but I landed a job in sales, manufacturing sales. It was nobody local. I took the job because I want to go try something else. That very week, my predecessor left. And the owners called me up and said, I understand that you're resigning. Yes. What's that all about? Just another opportunity. We'll go try something else. Really? And it did, it caught him off guard, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Could we have dinner? And, well, sure. So my wife and I went out and we sat down, and of course they didn't want me to leave. They wanted to know if I would be the general manager, and that was never on my radar. I never ever looked at that office for all the years that it was there. I never looked back there and went, I want to be that guy. I want to be that general. I never did. I was operations manager for about 10 years. I had done some sales here and there, just light sales, but I did a little sales. And so when this came up, my wife and I prayed about it for about 2 or 3 days, and I just finally came back to the realization that, you know what, everything that I've done there for the last 35 years or whatever it is, 30 years, I know the place inside and out. About the only thing that I haven't done there is be a transmitter engineer, and I even know a little bit about that. So I just thought, I think the good Lord is signaling us to stay, because I just felt really, I guess I am ready for this job. I can do this job. I felt bad for the staff because they were all nervous about having a new person come in.
Right.
And so I stayed, and there's only a few people who know that.
Are you happy with your decision?
And now 2 more people do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's kind of, things happen in mysterious ways for it to be at the same exact time.
It's funny. It's funny because I'd never really pursued other employment outside of that. And then the one time I really got serious about it, God opened that door. And no, I haven't been unhappy with it. It's been awesome. And to work for the Hughes family, H-U-S-E, who own the Norfolk Daily News, we're all one team. And to work for such a God-fearing family, and that's our motto. We serve the good Lord first, and if we serve the Lord, everything else takes care of itself. It's not to say that you're not going to have some tough times, but if you use the good Lord as your guide, the ship always seems to be going in the right direction at all times. And so I don't take that for granted, to be able to work for somebody like that, because it's no fun to work for somebody you don't like, or your values don't line up with who you're working for. So I guess my advice to people would be, don't ever sell yourself out for a higher paycheck, because it's miserable.
You really got to like what you do. I don't care how much money you're making. If you don't like what you do.
Yeah. And, radio is not a real lucrative job, and which is why I also did some sales, and then got into management, and that helped. So sales is always where it's at, but to be able to lead, and I knew we were going to go through some things 10 years ago. We had people who had been there for 40 years, and I knew they were going to retire, and how are we going to do this? And
so it almost was a blessing for the radio station that you were in that position, right? With the tenure that you had and the knowledge?
Well, ownership felt that way, I guess, which is why they offered it. And so I was confident enough in the team that we had there that, I told a couple of my leaders, I said, look, I just need you guys to do your job while I figure this out. And so if you just, don't go anywhere for at least a year.
Give me a year.
Give me a minute.
Sally Lewis was the general sales manager. Sally, you handle sales. Marcy, you handle the office. Billy, you handle the program staff while I figure this out. And it takes a full year to figure out a job like that. Because you got to go through every month, and you go through the cycles. And so, And I figured, well, okay, if I do this, then this is probably where I'm going to finish my career. But people ask me, I'm 63, but I still feel really good. Good Lord's blessed me with health, and everything's good at home. My wife retired a couple of years ago, so she's around, and
so she's just not going to let you retire.
No,
she doesn't want you at home.
Man, she went to the home show a couple of weeks ago, and wow, she came home and there've been
All
people,
kinds of plans.
There's all kinds of people dropping by and leaving bids behind, and I'm like, okay, work until I'm 80.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. You
Right
let
in
her
time for
retire.
your daughters to come back.
Yeah, just in time for the daughters to come and put me
No
in the wheelchair.
Arizona, just right into the wheelchair.
It probably will be. Probably will be.
What's a typical day like for you as a radio personality?
Oh, geez. Well, the only thing that's the same every day is 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. When I'm on the air. After that, I mean, it could be anything. Juggling a lot of different things. The on-air part is really hard to give up. First of all, we need somebody to be doing that, and I feel like I'm probably the best qualified there to be doing that particular show on that particular station. Billy's so great on 106 Kicks, and we have Kylie just killing it on 97.5 KEXL. So it was still tough to give that up a couple of years ago, but those two hours are the same. After that, I maintain a client list, and my client list mostly is west all the way out to Atkinson. So
Wow.
I'm on the road a lot, which I really enjoy. I love the days where I can just get in the car and go see clients, try to drum up some new business. Then there's always the decisions of management, taking care of our people, taking care of our facilities, and things like that. And so, yeah, no 2 days are the same. And
Right.
You juggle every day. I just told an employee today, I said, every day I feel like I'm doing 4 things at once. And you go home and you go, geez, did I get anything done today? But somehow it all gets done.
I think some people think radio personalities only come in for their spot.
Yeah, the 2 or 3 hours and you go home.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not the case, right?
Well,
Even for just like not outside of a general manager, but just like a radio personality that comes on and does a show.
the preparation. I mean, and that's what sets the people who are really good at it. Like Abe Shaner, when Abe was with us, if you saw him and the preparation that he did for every morning, I mean, you put about 2 hours of preparation into every hour that you're on the air.
Right.
People don't realize that. And there was a lot of times where, as I was getting into it, I sat down every night and just had a road map of this is what I'm going to talk about in this break and this break and this break. And so I had a plan every morning. I would go in there, ready for that to change at any minute if something broke overnight. But the people who did that, it sounds like it's all off the cuff, but it's really not. If it's well prepared and delivered well, that's what sets you apart. And with a trained ear, I listen to stations when I'm in other markets, and it shows. You can tell who does the prep work and who just mails it in.
Right.
And there's a lot of that today, sadly, with voice tracking and corporate ownership. And you might be listening to a station in Omaha and you're hearing all these voices, and what you don't know is most of those voices are in St. Louis, Arizona, California. It's just the iHeart family channeling the voices in. It's how they do business. Nothing against it, but it's people drive down, stop in the radio station. They expect to see you there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the local stations and keeping things local like that.
Keeping them local and keeping local people on the air, too. Yeah.
You get noticed a lot out and about? You get a lot of people come up to you?
Oh, I've lived in the community for a long, long time, so not so much. I've come to realize that way more people know who I am than I realize.
Probably.
And it makes me feel bad sometimes where I have a lot of people who will walk up and, hey, Jeffrey. Okay, who are you? You don't remember everybody.
Right. Because they feel like they know you because they listen to you every
Yeah,
morning.
they do, and I really appreciate that. And so, yeah, that's a fun part of it. But people leave you alone, too. Yeah. It's not like Scott Frost in Lincoln where you couldn't go get groceries without getting mobbed by autograph seekers. And
you don't have groupies?
I found out back in the day, I don't think I do anymore. Back in the day, I found out that I did. I had no idea. I had a woman share a story with me one time that there were 3 or 4 groupies, and they worked. I don't know where they worked, but one. The only concerning thing is what she told me is they waited outside the radio station across the street one day, and waited for you to leave. and followed you so they knew where you lived.
Oh no.
They were harmless,
That's
but
a
you're
little
like,
unnerving a bit.
Okay.
Nowadays that might be a little more concerning. Back then, maybe not so much, but
Yeah. I don't and now, sometimes the show, I don't try to make the show combative, but you're talking about some touchy subjects, and you're taking sides on some of them when you start talking politics, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't care for me one bit because of where I stand politically, but the music stations, that was just all in good fun, and I guess people just wanted to know you a little bit better, and but yeah, now of course we have phones, and people just they're entertained by their phones all the time. And back in those days you didn't have that, so they had to make their own fun, so they decided to follow their local morning DJ home one day to find out where he lived. Yeah.
Oh man, at least
but
you
I
found
never
that out
had the
later.
rock star aura. I never had women throwing themselves at
No,
me or
didn't
anything
have that.
like
No
that.
bras coming into the studio.
You missed that stage. You went straight to Crazy Town.
I must have.
Like, there's some stage in there
Yeah.
that you missed out on that wasn't the fun one.
I was single the first 5 years I was here. I didn't get married till 1990, and so never had that. We could go. I played softball back in the day, and we'd go down to the local tavern and have a few later on, and there were some nights where Jeffrey got about 3 hours of sleep and still pulled off the show. But everybody, people just treated me like anybody else, and that's what I really appreciated. That's what was fun about living here in Norfolk and spending. Everybody just, it's just Jeffrey. So that was always fun.
That's good.
Never took that for granted.
That's good. How do you balance the need to entertain with staying authentic to yourself?
Oh, wow, that's a good question.
Because I think you do it very well on the news show in the morning.
It's a performance. And you're there to do a job, and that is to wake people up and let them know what's going on. And I try to be cheerful, try to be a little funny here and there just to get people smiling, and give them some information that they might not know. I was talking to you would know who she is, but I won't bring her into this. But she just said, I just feel like I can turn the station on for about an hour or so, and the show is built in such a way that if you give me a half an hour, you should know everything you need to know. Like, you'll get the markets that you need, you'll get the sports, you'll get the news, and then anything else that's going on. And so that's kind of how we format the station, and we just kind of start over again at the bottom of the hour and do it again to the top of the hour. And so, it's a performance. If people get to know me outside of the radio station, they'll find that I'm an introvert, and that's not unusual in the business.
Yeah.
When I get home at night, I like being alone. And if that's weird, that's weird. But
That's not weird at all.
yeah, I mean, you get behind that microphone in the morning, and you just kind of unload everything, and then at the end of the day, especially now being the general manager, you have people coming at you about every 10 minutes all day long, needing a decision, and that wears on you. And so by the time you get home at night, you're ready to check out. Just want to turn on an episode of The Simpsons or Hogan's Heroes and fall asleep.
Right. I don't think people realize how much of a mental load some of that can be and really drain your body. I don't.
Right. And that's why I had to come off the music station. I mean, 4.5 hours. You get there at 5:30 in the morning. You're on the air till about 9:30, and that's a lot of energy. You have to you spend a lot of energy on that, emotional energy, even physical energy. And then when that's over, then you got a full day of work ahead of you as a manager and an account representative. And so it was, and most days still are, about 5. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, down at the station by 6, and usually not coming home till 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon. That adds up.
It does add up.
Yeah.
Definitely adds up.
When you were on the, I was just thinking about it on the disc. I was always curious on the disc jockey side, on the music side. Like, how did you choose what music to play in throughout the show? Did you do that, or
No.
did you kind of have a run? Somebody else did that for you.
Music director, and that is that's a real misunderstanding amongst people. They think we get to pick our own music, and if radio stations do that, they're setting themselves up for disaster and failure.
Yeah.
You know, the old request line, call the request line. And I hated request lines because the people who called the request line would ask for people, they would ask us to play music that most people thought really sucked. You never play my song. That's because most people think it sucks, and that's why we're not playing it. So, yeah, we did that a little bit, but the dirty little secret is very rarely did we play it unless it was a song that fit the format. So we have Billy Wolf as our music director on 106 Kicks. We have software that does that now, but of course we have to put in the parameters. Michael J. Nissen does our music on 97.5 KEXL, and they load it, and then it's hands off. Nobody touches it. You play the music that's scheduled because there is a method to that. There's a pace to it. There's a texture to it, and that's the music director's job. And so my job was to play the music that he had scheduled, and I very rarely went off that script because I was busy trying to be entertaining, doing everything else. The last thing I wanted to have to do was worry about the damn music, too. It's like,
Right.
You handle that. So it's all scheduled there in the morning. So you get there, you just look at the computer screen and the menu, and you see where your commercials are. You see what music is there, and you just get it played. And so, yeah, I don't choose the music. I don't want to choose the music.
That's good.
You have to play the songs that you don't like. There were songs that I didn't like, but
you couldn't skip.
You had to
No,
power,
we're going to the next one.
You had to power through. You had to power through that whatever Prince song that sucked. I like most of it. There's some of his songs like, oh God, I gotta play that again. And the current music is the stuff that you get tired of because it'll come up every 3 hours in the log. There's Taylor Swift, and I mean she's on one of these rolls where she could belch an album and people would buy it.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. They would buy it.
Yeah,
And they'd go to see that live show.
she would. Yeah, they would. They would. Yeah.
Have you ever had any like on-air bloopers or funny moments?
Oh, geez, probably plenty. None come to mind at the moment.
Ever dropped any swear words, like bad ones, on live?
No, I don't think I ever did. We were pretty tedious about that and disciplined about that. And usually it's like, okay, you guys, when you walk into the studio here, you leave all that language behind that door.
Yeah.
Because even if the microphone is not hot and you're doing that, that's where it more likely will come out. So you try to keep that clean. We did have an incident just a couple of weeks ago. So on WJAG, we carry Governor Pillen's monthly call-in show. He does a monthly call-in show. It goes statewide. And I was listening that day, and I think the Gov dropped a bomb. There was a contentious caller. I had it on in my office, and it was kind of a spicy call, but I got distracted, and I think just as the guy was hanging up, the governor ripped one, and I didn't realize it, and so I got these emails later from the Nebraska Broadcasters Association because they sponsor that and explained the whole situation, and so the host just didn't quite hit that delay button fast enough, and it must have slipped out. I have to go back and listen to the recording.
Interesting.
The news guys did. So yeah, it happens, and in a situation like that where the program is feeding out to individual stations like a network broadcast, you're all liable.
Oh, everybody's liable.
Everybody's liable. It's
not where it's coming
remember
from.
Janet Jackson and Nipplegate?
Yep.
All of those CBS stations
We're liable for that?
They were all liable for that.
Wow.
Because it went out over their airwaves.
So everybody's finable at that point.
Yeah.
That seems like a little bit of a
It was a little
money
much.
grab.
I haven't heard anything about the governor's thing, so hopefully that's just kind of blown over.
Good.
I'm hoping. But yeah. It does. I don't ever remember that ever that happening. So maybe I'm lucky, knock on wood. I'll probably do it tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've done pretty good on this one. We're not going to like taint your mind to do that in the morning.
Well, again, it comes back to you try to respect the audience, and you can't make everybody happy, but you try to be respectful.
How do you see the role of radio evolving with the rise of digital platforms and podcasts?
Well, I think it's just its popularity has never been bigger.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a repeat question. I apologize.
No, that's okay, but it is reach, and the good thing that radio has done over the years is when the internet came along, and late 90s, Rob Thomas, our general manager, drug us kicking and screaming into the 21st century. We had one of the first, if not the first, community website. It was norfolkonline.com, and we still own that. But it was a pretty slick looking website, and we streamed the radio stations. Shortly thereafter, we streamed. So you don't need a radio if you have good internet access. Now you can just click listen live on our websites. We also have a downloadable app in the App Store, Norfolk Radio, and so you can download that right to your phone. Then you just tap the app, and then you're listening to any of our 3 stations. And so it's so easy to get to the station that you want to listen to now, probably easier than it's ever been. You can listen. You carry your phone everywhere, so you can always be listening. When I was in Arizona playing golf this year, I listened to WJAG every day. So I was out playing golf, listening to Clay and Buck. Because of the time zone difference, it was just perfect for the round of golf that I was playing in. So the digital, people sometimes will ask me if I'm worried about the digital age, and no, not at all. I think radio is well positioned to move into that era, bigger and better than ever before. So I think we're going to be around for quite a long time. If the local community, I think if you serve the local community well, the local community will respond to that.
I agree with you.
There's a lot of things on the local level. Our local news is the absolute linchpin of what we do. City council, county commissioners, the legislature. You can't find a lot of really good information. We're moving into an era now where there are news deserts, and we talk a lot about that with our partners at the Norfolk Daily News. Do you guys know that the Norfolk Daily News is the last locally owned daily newspaper in the state of Nebraska?
I did not realize that.
All of the other dailies are owned by an outside conglomerate, if that's what you want to say it. And so what happens is papers then lose their local flavor. Instead of having, 8-10 reporters covering their local beat, they have 2. And they can't cover it all.
Right.
It's all about the bottom line. And what happens in these news deserts, and I can share a story about one, but what happens is, if you've ever been to a public meeting, like a school board meeting, city council meeting, anything like that, their behavior is different when the media is in the back watching them. If there's no media there, they will behave differently. And that's not to throw shade on any of them. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
And so there was a small town out in California. I wish I could remember the name. But there was no local newspaper in their area. And there was a city administrator there that decided to quadruple his own salary, and he had a couple of cronies, gave huge raises to for their city. And they had no media following this. And people knew that there was something going on. And so they called down to the Los Angeles Times and asked them to come up and look into it. And they did, and they found out about it. They uncovered it. I think a couple of those people ended up in jail. But if not for those reporters from the LA Times coming up and covering that, that would have just went on and on and on.
Right.
And that is happening with greater frequency now. There are news deserts in the state of Nebraska now. There are, the Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal-Star they're all under the same ownership. I think, at some point they're going to be the Nebraska Herald or
Right.
the Nebraska Star or something like that. It's inevitable. But it really, really affects public trust, and it's really, really important for local media to hold our public servants accountable. And most of our public servants here, they don't have a problem with that.
Mm-mm.
Frankly, it helps them do their job, to be transparent, to stay ahead of things. And so that's what we have. And I will tell you that the ownership of the Norfolk Daily News is firmly committed to the fourth pillar. And the fourth pillar of the Constitution is just that if the checks and balances don't work, the legislative and the judicial and the executive branches don't hold each other accountable. Our founding fathers always knew freedom of the press would be there. I don't think they ever could have predicted this.
Probably not.
There are places now where there is no press, there is no local media, and they're not being held accountable. And
the other danger of it is part of the government is taking over that side of it. I mean, they're pushing their agenda out through some of this press.
Sure,
not
they
all
are.
the press, but like
they have their
certain
favorite
press.
platforms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and people are trusting it as an unbiased source when it's clearly
absolutely. More and more people rely on social media to get their news, and that's really, really dangerous, especially from a local level. You really need trained professional journalists covering these stories so they do get a fair shake. And there are some really good entities out there like that, but that is really something to pay attention to, because if the Norfolk Daily News would go away and our local radio stations would just, mail it in and not really be local stations, but just jukeboxes, all of that would go away. And there are a lot of things that would go sideways from a public standpoint.
And you talking about our elected officials being transparent. We saw that on our own show here. Most of them came on, no problem.
Right.
We're open about everything. So it was nice to see that even from our side of things.
Why wouldn't you? If you're going to run, let people know who you are and let the chips fall where they may.
Definitely.
brings the heat down a little bit too, because then
Sure it
everybody gets to
does.
see you as a person as opposed to the big bad wolf.
Absolutely. You're better off. You're better off acting rather than reacting. If you're put in a position of reacting, that's always a bad look. So if you can always stay out ahead of things, like our search for our next superintendent, I had Brenda Carhart on, I think the morning after their special meeting about how are we going to do this. And, she knows the importance of making sure that the public understands how we should do this. It's a long process. We have to make sure that we take the proper steps, that we get public input. And so it was really important to have her on the air to be able to explain that to people.
And she said that quite a few times. I listened to that portion.
Yeah.
She made sure to reiterate that
Yeah.
more than once.
Right.
It's a long process. It's going to be this and given dates. And
yeah, we're not going to hurry through this because this is a really, really important.
same thing with the police station. They're still searching for that too.
Yeah, they are.
We're talking to Shane next week, so we're going to try to get some insight on that.
There we go. Good luck.
I know. You talked to him too. I know.
He's very accessible too,
He is.
and very transparent, and he's got a really, really tough job.
He does. He walked into a kind of a firestorm a little bit.
He talked about that on the show, and when running, he couldn't have anticipated the police station staffing issue, any of that. So, baptism by fire.
Yeah, definitely. He's the right guy for it. I think he's taking it okay.
So. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about Rick Dees, but is there any other broadcasting mentors or influences that you had?
Well, there was always Casey Kasem, and I would.
You kind of sound like Casey a little bit.
I'm Casey Kasem. Remember, how would he end that show every? He would always end the American Top 40, because when I was in high school, that was what you listened to on the weekends. You listened to the American Top 40 to see what the number one song is. And he would say, and remember, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for cigars. Or no, I think he said stars.
But I went for the cigars.
Sounds
better.
That's funny.
Yeah, he was fun to do. Yeah, I'm Casey Kasem. He was another, and he did. He kind of went out quietly. But he brought that format to radio. You talk about an influence. Casey Kasem was doing local radio in Los Angeles, just like Rick Dees was. Rick Dees started in North Carolina. I think he moved to Memphis for a short time, ended up at KISS FM in Los Angeles, and that's where he hit it big. That's when he got his weekly top 40. But Casey Kasem was just doing, I think he was a midday disc jockey in Los Angeles back in the early 60s, mid 60s. And there's a stat that radio people will look at in large markets. It's called TSL, time spent listening. And most of the time, most radio listening was done in the morning. Here's Casey Kasem midday. He's just crushing it with this TSL. These people were listening to his show for like 3 hours a day. And the pollsters like, what? What are you doing? How do you get people to listen to your show for almost the entire 4 hours? And he looked at the guy and he said, I don't. I get them to listen for 15 more minutes. Okay, so we were taught that in college. And that's what I always tried to do in the morning is you try to get people to listen for 15 more minutes. So every time you open up your microphone, what's coming up in the next 10 to 15 minutes? You just throw a little teaser out there, and that's what he would do. He was masterful at that. Long distance dedications, whatever. But he'd never shut off his microphone without saying, here's what's going to happen in 15 minutes. And so people, okay, I'm going to hang around for that. And then you get to that point, and then he'd lay out another, okay, I'm going to listen to that. And so he was masterful at that. And I would say that influence, along with Rick Dees and the characters and developing that and figuring out how to do that, were probably the two biggest influences.
I can kind of see that in the work that you do now too.
Sure,
both of them.
You always want to give them a reason to hang around and not tune out.
And I remember that because I used to listen to Rick Dees a little bit, and I remember him. Now that you mentioned that, he would always,
sure,
coming up at number one. He's
got an app. You can download now, and you can listen to all of his top 40 programs from the 80s. And I love going back and listening to that and listening to some of those old bits. But, and the prizes that he was giving away back in the 1980s. Hey, today an opportunity to win a CD player. And
I remember booting up my computer. This is back when we had just the one in the house when I was a kid, because he had done some sort of giveaway. It was a decent giveaway,
right?
But you had to know the song. It was like if he played a piece of the song,
a little snippet. Yep,
this little snippet. I'm like,
yep.
Oh my god, I know what it is. And I had to boot it up, log in, and I didn't win. But
yeah, back in the day, you'd have to send him a postcard, and like 2 weeks later, he'd tell you who the winner was from 2 weeks ago. That's how slow things moved back then. But yeah, it was just another little nugget, another little tidbit to listen. I think some of the most listenable things that we did, and just even in my final year or two on KEXL, every morning at 7:40, we'd do ungoogleable trivia. Ungoogleable trivia, because as phones, came along, it was really hard to contest on the radio because everybody just grabbed their phone and
hey Siri, what's this?
Yeah, you'd look up the answer and then you're done, and that's kind of goes against the integrity of the program. So we had to come up with these ungoogleable answers that they couldn't find, and it would drive people nuts. And you get people calling, and you have moms dropping their kids off from school, and I can't get out of the van. I'm trying to go into work. What the hell is the answer? And so that was fun. But that was engaging because you gave them an opportunity to play along with you, even if they weren't calling you. It was very engaging, and they played along. They just wanted to know what the answer was. They didn't care about the prize. Right. I just want to make sure I'm right.
Right, exactly. What's a dream interview or guest you'd love to have on your show? Or any kind of show, somebody you'd like to interview.
Okay, so I'm going to give up some of my nerdiness. Well, probably a president of the United States, but I grew up in the 70s when we were walking on the moon. And my heroes to this day are those 12 men who walked on the moon, or those guys who flew to the moon, even though they didn't land. And I spend a lot of my time listening to podcasts about this. I'm listening to one right now called 13 Minutes to the Moon. It was done by the BBC. And they went back and they just take you minute, second by second, through that Apollo program. So all of those astronauts, Neil Armstrong is gone. He's been gone since 2012. Buzz Aldrin's still alive. I think he's in his 90s. But extraordinary individuals. That would be my dream interview, to land an interview with any of those guys. Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13, turned 97 years old this week.
Oh my gosh, really?
97.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah. His wife, Marilyn, I think passed last year or the year before that. And he still talks about that mission. You know, I think that was his 4th space flight. He was the first guy to go back to the moon twice, because he was on Apollo 8 in 1968. And when they flew out to the moon, orbited it, they'd never gone beyond Earth orbit. Well, I can tell you that whole story, but I'd bore too many people because I'm geeky. I really get into this. But yeah, any of the moonwalkers. I remember in my years at Wayne State, Jim Lovell was a guest speaker one night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we got to go listen to him, and so that would have been in 1981. So only maybe about 10 or 11 years after that happened. Fred Hayes is still alive, and Jack Schweigert, who was the guy who got slotted into that mission 2 days before launch because he was the backup pilot. He passed away of cancer in 1982. I watched Apollo 13, the movie, and it really screwed Jack Schweigert over.
Did it really?
Well, Kevin Bacon played the role.
Yeah.
And they portrayed him as this dunce who wasn't ready for the mission, womanizer. The truth is, Jack Schweigert worked for what is it? North American Aviation. He worked for North American Aviation before he became an astronaut. He actually worked on the command module. He knew more about that ship than anybody. He knew that ship inside and out. And frankly, had he not been on that mission, they might not have gotten back.
Right.
He was a better guy to have on that ship than the guy who got left behind, Thomas Mattingly, because he had been exposed to the measles. And the movie, Ron Howard just screwed him over. And people have pressed him on it. I thought it was a low blow because he was dead and gone.
Right.
And maybe that's why they picked on him. But all Ron Howard would say is, look, I had to make a movie and I had to make it exciting. I'm like, a ship blowing up 200,000 miles from Earth isn't dramatic enough? You had to throw that in there? But, yeah, I don't know. So I would say any of the guys who walked on the moon, and, they're slowly dying off as well.
Yeah, and we haven't been back.
We haven't been back, and I don't quite understand this. Didn't anybody leave any blueprints behind about how to get to the moon? These guys are like, they're trying to figure out how to go to the moon. I'm like, we did that 50 years ago.
We can't even go to the space station.
We can't even get to the space station without hitchhiking the Rooskies.
What's the most random or unexpected thing you've had to talk about on air, outside of maybe like the sad, horrific stuff? Maybe something a little more lighthearted?
Oh, well, the sad stuff is what I remember.
We can talk about that. I just know you already talked about kind of those two situations.
Those are two of the more memorable days.
Because I remember those 2 days still to this day too, where I was, what was going on.
Yeah. Just the ugliness of it all, that, we live in this town, and we like the fact that it's a friendly place and we all have each other's backs. And when something like that comes in, and we're forced to deal with what the world truly is, that there really is evil. I don't know. Sometimes I'd have to interview people that I just really wasn't interested in, or an event going on that I really didn't care that much about. You had to sound excited about it. And none of them come to mind, but
yeah. Well, we don't have to, we don't have to blast them on air either.
The real dirty little secret about having guests on the show now in the news talk format, that's a part of it. And we'd have guests on once in a while, but from my perspective, I can't speak for the other guys, it really screwed up your momentum. Like you'd get really rolling with the music and you'd get your show rolling. You got your bits all laid out, and then we got a guest. So we stopped dead, and then we have the guest on for about 5 or 10 minutes or whatever, and then you had to pick back up. So
it's like a speed bump.
Kind of a speed bump, yeah. But you wanted to be respectful. It was things happening in the community, so you wanted to talk about that. But you just kind of get rocking and rolling. And it's like, okay, now we got to have the mayor on.
We've had situations where we have to kind of get the guest kind of talking.
Yeah.
Have you had that before? Where
Yeah.
They just aren't. They're giving one word answers or.
Right. Yes. Oh, yes. We've yes, we've had that. And can you expound on that at all? No.
Like I try to ask very broad questions, and sometimes we still get yeah, I did that. Or no, we don't do that there.
I love guests who can just, take a cue, and they do most of the talking. Those are the best interviews when the guest does most of the talking and I don't have to haul the interview. If I have to haul the interview, it's like, why are you here? Just leave your information behind. I'll do it.
Right.
It'll sound better.
Right. You're not wrong at all.
Or I can have Ronald Reagan come in and do it.
That's what you should start. You should just start doing them that way. Just do all the different interviews that way. The different president each time.
Come by the Senior Citizen Center. We'll have bingo at 4 o'clock. And if you stay afterwards, we might have a little imbibing in the back room.
Do you have any quirky habits or superstitions that you do before you go on air?
No, I don't think so. If you guys are really throwing curveballs at me here. No, that's okay. No, like Wade Boggs played for the Boston Red Sox, and he ate chicken every day. Every day he played a ball game, he ate chicken because he thought that's what made him a 300 hitter. All right, dude, if that's what works for you, go for it. But no, I don't think so. I learned to like coffee real fast when, go back to college and I got that job at KTCH. My boss asked me if I wanted to do that morning show, and I'm like, my first question was, what time do I have to get up in the morning to do that? And his response was, it's going to be a lifestyle change for you. So you got senior in college ready to just rip it up in my last year of college, and Thursday nights, all that. And so that was hard. So I'm like, okay, I never really drank coffee to that point, but I got to learn how. And I learned real fast to like black coffee. So I couldn't come in without having at least a couple of cups of coffee. I guess that's a boring answer, but that's probably it.
Hey, it's something. It's something.
Yeah.
I haven't come up with something yet on here.
I do
ritually. No.
Yeah.
Not yet. Anyway.
The only ritual is prep.
Prep.
I always wanted to be prepared. I hated it when I went into the studio. I had nothing prepared. And there were times where it was a late night, or you had to go do a ball game the night before. You got home at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's like, I'm going to take a 3-hour nap, and then you got to be back at it. That always made me uneasy because that wasn't respecting the audience. The audience deserved to have something ready to go. And so I would be very meticulous about that. So yeah, before I come down, I do all that prep work. I still do all my prep work at home in my office, even do some work in the studio at home. And then I literally sometimes hop in the car at 10 to 6 and walk in right at 6 o'clock, but I'm all ready. I've got all my notes ready. I print, go by the printer, pick up my stuff, come in. I know exactly what I'm going to do.
That's good. Prep is a big thing.
It is.
People don't think we do a lot of prep on this one either. We do a little bit. Just not as much as you, but
well, no, it's a different format. Even when you're going to interview somebody, you want to have the interview that's toughest for me. And this is nothing against Senator Dover. There is so much going on in the legislature, and I just wish I could stay on top of all of it, but there's just not enough hours in the day. So fortunately, he's a good talker, and he hauls the mail. We have him on every Monday morning during the legislative sessions just to give him an opportunity to speak to his constituents. And at first I had to kind of talk him into that, but I could tell about 3 or 4 weeks in it, he was hearing the feedback on it. So, like I told him, I said, I'm not here to pin you down on anything. I am here to give you the opportunity to speak about what you're doing down there. And I think he's been really, really impressive. And I think he's doing a great job for us.
That's good to hear. What is one piece of advice you would go back and give yourself or anyone trying to get in the industry now?
Gosh. Be true to yourself again. You come back to that. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to be a persona of something else. I think is what I found. And there are some people that have done that and been successful at that, but I don't think you can be consistent with that. But just be true to yourself. Like, I'm going to be Jeffrey. I'm not going to get on the air and try to be Rick Dees. I'm not going to get on the air and try to do Casey Kasem. And there were times in my career where, it was time for a vacation, and the guy who would fill in for me, whoever it would be, they'd try to be Jeffrey. It's like they'd try to do the comedy bits and everything, and I'm like, you guys, you don't have to do that.
Do what's comfortable. Comfortable to
do
you.
What's comfortable to you. Be you, and just hope that's enough to haul the mail. And so, yeah, I just try to be myself every day, and you come up with what we call benchmarks. So you try to do the same type of thing at the same time every day. So people, what they do is they become creatures of habit. So I would do a feature called Wacky News. Wacky News or Wacky Foreigners, which is politically incorrect these days, but those wacky foreigners. And we do that at about 10 after 6 or something like that. So I would have many people say, I don't need an alarm. I just got to wait for you to get done with the wacky news, and then I know it's time to get up, because they knew by then it was about 6:15. Or we do the school lunch menus, and my good buddy Sal Manella, I forgot to mention old Sal. Sal Manella, the KEXL commissary chef. He would read the school lunch menus every day. And then he would always have something ready in the KEXL commissary for lunch. Today, we're going to have toasted tomcat with gopher gravy. Ooh. The kids love that.
I'm sure.
Nowadays, you don't do that on the radio because everybody's got that information on their phone. But boy, back in the day before the internet, even though it was maybe published in the paper, those kids would tune in every morning at 6:45 to hear Salmonella do the KEXL commissary chef and read their school lunch menu. So we'd read the menus from about every school in the area and take like 5 or 6 minutes.
Right.
So we were doing that, and when I first got there, you're just reading these things, and I'm like, God, this is boring. So I had a really good friend. Daryl Johnson is his name, and he's the guy I replaced at KTCH. And this guy knew how to do morning radio, and that's I would credit him too in teaching me how to do that. And he actually came up with that idea, have some character do it. And so I thought to myself, okay, what kind of a name would you give this guy? I could see Sal, the chef with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, half grown, 3-day beard and chili stains on his shirt. And that's Sal. So who do you name him? And Salmonella. So I remember the first day we went on the air with Sal. Oh, my God. I think every lunch lady in the area called me. You said that we have salmonella in the food up here? No, I didn't say that. Yes, they heard this. Yeah. So I had to settle them down. I actually played the bit back to the lady here in Norfolk, and then she said, then it was after a while, she's like, okay, I like Sal. I'm getting to like Sal.
That's
but
funny.
that was another benchmark, 6:45. Okay, got to get up to hear Sal, and then we're on our way. So, yeah, benchmark programming.
You should bring back Sal for the senior center menu.
Senior center menu. We could do that. That would be really fun. Grilled cheese.
Sometimes that menu, I'm like, man, it sounds good. And then some days I'm like, I don't want that at all.
Yeah, I agree. There's some days, but they have food there that like Grandma made back in 1950.
They had liver and onions the other day.
Liver and onions, man. They always offer a substitute when you have liver and onions. I'm like, Can't liver and onion stand on their own?
No.
Right.
No, it can't.
Oh, man, I love liver and
It
onions.
literally cannot stand on its
My
own.
mom would cut up beef liver when I was a kid and fry them in onions. And, that was the best. That was the best. Yeah, they always got to have a substitute. Like, okay, you'd rather have your tuna sandwich, have your tuna sandwich.
That's fun. Is there anything? I know that you have a long career. I just didn't want to keep you here too long.
Yeah. What time
So
is
I'm
it?
sure we
Is it
can-
midnight yet?
No, we are on about 2 hours.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Um,
Who's going to listen to this for 2
Oh,
hours?
they will. Don't worry. But there's a little
Both
bit.
of them will?
Yeah, both. Well, two people.
Those two,
Us
for
two
sure.
will listen to this episode again
Okay.
for 2 hours.
You get two hits.
We have more, so we could always bring you back on again if you want to talk more radio stuff, or we could keep talking about it too. I just didn't know what your time schedule was.
No, just bedtime.
I know don't you go to bed at like 9 or something?
No, I don't. I really don't. It's 10 or 10:30,
Oh,
depending on
so we
the
got
year.
time.
Wintertime, sometimes maybe a little earlier, but I play golf leagues once in a while, and
Yeah,
I guess I've just learned to get by with about 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours of sleep.
that's kind of what I've come down to too.
I'm surprised I'm healthy, knock on wood, but I try to get to the YMCA 3-4 times a week in the wintertime.
That's good.
And so I think that helps, but yeah. People-
I thought I heard you say that on the radio. I wasn't calling you old.
Well, I am. I mean, I'm getting used to the fact that I can now remember 50 years ago.
Right.
I'm now that I'm in my 60s. The 1970s were 50 years ago, and I keep having to slap myself upside the head. Oh my God, that
Where
was
did it all
50
go?
years. 50 years. 50 years. And I'll be talking to young people, and then I find out that they might be children or grandchildren of classmates of mine. That's jarring.
Yeah.
That's really jarring. And but I think 60-year-olds live like 40-year-olds used to live.
That's what it seems like. It's kind of moving its way up because you don't look 60 in my eyes, anyway.
I don't feel it most days. I don't feel it. And my wife Amy, she is a fitness instructor at the YMCA, so I have a lot of inspiration right in the house. She goes out in her yoga pants looking great, and I'm laying there with Cheetos all over my chest watching the football, drinking beer. I'm like, okay, I got to haul the weight here. Got to haul the mail. So, yeah.
It's funny.
She's got me into body pump this year. I'm more of a cardio. I should give a shout out to my spinning instructors. So spinning is what I love to do at the Y, because I just love to get a good sweat going in about 40 minutes and get gassed and then walk out of there. It's really efficient. But yeah, the ladies at the YMCA, but my wife said, you got to have some weights. I don't know about you guys, but I hated lifting weights in high school.
I've never been
I
a huge
wasn't a
fan.
fan.
That's probably why we
I
were
had
2
to
and
carry
36.
buckets of corn. So.
That's why we were 2 and 36 in football. Yeah.
Got
yeah.
a bunch of cross country runners and that.
Yeah. And I actually ran cross country my last year. I'm like, this football thing's just not working out. I think I'm going to go run with a cross country team, because I was getting ready. I was more looking forward to basketball season. I'm like, I can get myself in better shape, I think, in cross country rather than being a tackling dummy in football practice every day. So, but those guys were good. It's like those guys were winning state championships, and I'm like, here I am, and I just wanted to be like the fifth guy. Just I'll be the fifth guy. But yeah, they were good back in the day.
That's good. So yeah, if you're okay with moving, we have some other stuff to get into.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know.
I'm on a roll now, man.
It's a long radio career, so I just want to make sure we didn't leave anything out.
Oh, hit me up.
So we kind of move into our federal questions at this point, usually. But I want to ask you a little bit. How do you think Norfolk, in the time that you've been here, what do you think has changed? Do you think it's changed for the good? Do you think things are better now than they were? How is Norfolk in your eyes?
It kind of depends on what you're talking about and where your focus is, because there's a lot of diversity here. When I first got here in the 80s, the Hispanics were just coming into the community. That was a rough time because we're conservative people around here, and we don't like a lot of change, and there were a lot of people really, really concerned about that. But now, that's been 40 years ago, and, we have 2 and 3 generations of Hispanics. They're beautiful people, wonderful people, hardest working people you'll ever want to meet. And so I think that has been wonderful for the community, to be honest with you. It's so funny because I had Sherry Rudin, the executive director of the Art Center, on this morning. The Art Center is now 25 years old.
That's crazy to think about.
Like
too.
I'm trying to remember what that lot looked like before we built it in 2000, and all the changes in downtown at River Point. Now I go down there, I don't even remember what that looked like, and that's only been a couple of years ago. The community, just driving out here to your place, drove through a community. I thought about this as I was driving out. None of this was here when I first got here. None of this. I was probably driving through a cornfield. We're probably sitting in a cornfield.
We are
40 years ago. So that's been great. The housing industry has been wonderful.
Not even that long ago. This was cornfield. Probably I'm trying to think, because it was still cornfield when my parents lived on Berry Hill over here.
Yeah,
maybe 15 years ago.
Right.
20 years.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I have been in our home for 33 years now. Mostly because when we moved, I told her, I said, this is the last time we're moving. Moving sucks. I hate moving. But yeah, and it was a newer neighborhood, as it were. I live on a cul-de-sac, and one of my neighbors on my cul-de-sac, we've had the same neighbors for 35 years. Just only recently, one of them finally moved out and sold the house. But one of my neighbors was one of the first homes in my subdivision in 1977.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of, I guess I've been here long enough now to watch the community be transformed. And I think Josh Moaning, in the 8 years that he spent as mayor, moved the needle more than any administration has in my time here. There's no denying that. He surrounded himself with good people. There's a guy by the name of Mike Flood that moves the needle. There are movers and shakers in this town who know how to get things done. And when I think about what downtown Norfolk looked like 10 to 15 years ago and what the potential now is for this community, it is off the charts. I sit on the Nebraska Broadcasters Board, and so I go to meetings in Omaha and Lincoln, and every time I go to a meeting, what the heck's going on up in Norfolk? What the heck? They watch us. The rest of the state is watching us. Other communities are visiting Norfolk to find out, what the heck are you guys doing up here? So that's going to be Josh's legacy. That's going to be Mike's legacy, and that's going to be quite a legacy because that is the future. Get young people to stay here. That is the future of your community, because if they keep moving out, that's bad news. So I think Norfolk has really set itself up wonderfully for the next 20 to 25 years.
Do you think it still can sustain that way even after that? I know it's talking a lot into the future, but
can it maintain this?
Can we do that same thing in 20 years? You say we're good for another 20 years. Do you think the right people will be here to be able to continue that, keeping young people here and growing the community? And
I hope so. I hope so. I hope that we've learned a lot. Like 20 years from now, I'm going to be in my 80s. Hopefully, I'll still be around. I don't know. I think there's other parts of the community now that need to be paid attention to.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's causing some of the divisiveness in the community. And I understand that there are people in other parts of town that, hey, don't forget about us over here. Look at the mall and the condition that's in, and that area of town. Look down by the Norfolk Livestock Market, although there is some things happening down there. But man, that has really turned into a bad-looking piece of property.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can do what we did at River Point in other parts of the community and continue to bring it along, I don't think there are many problem areas there, but I think those areas do need to be paid attention to, and I think they can be tied into the momentum that's going on in downtown Norfolk.
Hopefully, and I'm sure you've been around here long enough to see the fluctuation from a good downtown, thriving downtown, to where it moved to the mall and moved more outskirts of town to now where it's back. So you don't think that'll happen again, do you? Where it's a movement like that, where
that's all. It's life is always cyclical. But I hope not. I hope we can keep this momentum going. And but it does. It's reflective of your leadership, and it's reflective of the people that we elect.
Yeah.
I think the early part of my career here is we were just we were conservative to a fault. The city, under the leadership at that time, they focused on, infrastructure. We got to make sure that we have a police station, though the police station that they built was too small on the day that they opened it up, fire, and then that's it. And there wasn't much investment in anything else. And so we would brag that taxes were low in this town while everything was falling apart around us. And downtown was falling into disrepair, and there wasn't any investment. I sat on the board of the Visitors Bureau at a time when we transformed that. When I first sat on the advisory board for that, it was actually being managed by the Chamber of Commerce. And it became clear to some of our board members that, we really have our own mission here. And it's not necessarily that of the chamber. So we really wanted to transform that and put that out on its own, which we did. And there were some growing pains with that, and there were some people who didn't agree with that, and they were upset with that. But I think the track record of the Visitors Bureau and now the Norfolk Area Sports Council, the people that they now bring into the community, I don't think you can argue much. The state one-act play competition that's here, the state golf tournaments, that's all a direct result of the Visitors Bureau and the Sports Council. And Kim Kwapnowski became our director shortly after we, I don't know, divorce is the right word, but separated ourselves from the chamber and managed ourselves. We paid for a study to find out how much impact, what kind of economic impact there was that tourism provided for the community, because I don't think we truly understood what that was. And it was tremendous. We started getting numbers back, which told us that if somebody comes to Norfolk, they will spend on average, $50 each. And if they spend the night, it jumps up to like $125 each. And then we found out how many people were coming. There was over 100,000 people coming into this town over a year's time. And you start doing that math, and you're like, holy cow. Kim went out and told that story. She went to the county commissioners. You guys need to put some scratch in the game, because we were funded by a tax on hotel stays. All right, so we need more hotel stays, but we need some scratch ahead of that to bring people to town so they are staying in hotels. And the county has a stake in that. The city certainly had a stake in that. We went to the city council and got some funds from them as well. And so that's how that was grown and what it is today. And it's had a huge impact on the economy in town. And that's one of the things that helps all of these restaurants and bars stay in business in downtown Norfolk. All the money that's spent by those people who come to town. That's a huge part of what happens in town.
Definitely. And I know that group's had a huge impact on the things that you said, the one act, the state golf, all the things that have stayed here, because I know they've tried to take those away.
They have, there's the Nebraska School Activities Association, again, we have such a good relationship with them and have developed that over the years, mostly through one acts. I remember when the first time we went down there to bid for that, it had been out in Kearney for 400 years. And we knew that we had a better setup here, and it was going to work much better. We had a bigger venue, and we went down there. It was up for bid. We went down there unannounced, showed up, made our presentation, and it was voted down 7-2 or something like that. And we're like, what the hell? Everybody in that room knew that this bid kicked the crap out of Kearney keeping it.
Right.
And that's when we found out the politics of it all.
Yeah.
The Board of Control. Okay, this is a political game. Right. Okay, so now we know what the rules are. We know what what the field looks like. So the following year, when we were hosting, I think, the girls' state golf tournament, we knew that some of those Board of Control members were going to be in town. Mike Fuhrer was our sports council director at that time. Mike went out and rented a motor coach, and we went out to the country club, and we picked up these Board of Control members, and we said, we're going to take a little ride down to the Johnny Carson Theater, and we walked them through the theater, and we showed them what a difference that venue would be compared to what was down in Kearney. Like, literally after every presentation, every play in Kearney, they would have to empty it out and then allow the parents to the next one to come in. Whereas up here, everybody could come in there and you could watch the whole session. Anyway, so they all just kind of looked at us, and I wasn't there, but Mike said they looked at us and said, "Okay, we get it.
Yeah,
you come back next year." And it's never been anywhere else. Interestingly, we made a play for the state cross country meet. I don't know if many people remember that, but Mike also wanted to make a play for the state cross country meet, because we always thought, if you ever went to a cross country meet in at Skyview Lake, you know that you can actually see most of the race.
Right.
You only lose the runners when they run to the west end there and then loop and come back. And so we thought, let's make a play for that. So, you know, we were getting a little cocky now. We stole the state theater championship. So let's go down there and see if we can get cross country. And man, Mike did a tremendous job of bringing all the schools together. We were going to use Norfolk Catholic as a staging area. We had the police department involved. They had the parking all figured out. We had traffic flow. If you've ever been to the state cross country meet, you actually leave the Kearney Country Club, and then you go to, I think, over to the high school for the medal presentations. We thought, we can do that right there, right outside at that outside stage. And so people can meander over there, watch the medals, and then they don't have to miss them. Anyway, again, we thought our presentation was much better. We got voted down. We walked out, asked the Board of Control members, what's going on here? Well, we allowed you to take the state one acts out of Kearney. Did you really think we were going to let you take cross country out of there too? And we're like, okay. So in later years, though, as these contracts came back up for bid, one day, I won't say who, but somebody from down in Kearney called us up and said, look, and this is where this play for the state cross country meet actually bore fruit, even though we didn't get it. Kearney called up and said, I don't know if this is still true, if you guys don't come down here and come after the state cross country meet, we'll leave the state theater championships alone as well. We won't bid against you there. So that's been about 6 or 7 years ago. So they knew we meant business. Yeah. And the rest of the state took notice of that. We meant business because we wanted to bring people here to spend their money and spend the night.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what the whole thing's about. That's what all the councilmen and mayor candidates said when they came on. All the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I get it. On the federal side, now that the election's over, what are you most looking forward to in the next 4 years?
Watching Donald Trump drain the swamp. The swamp needs to be drained, and I think when Donald Trump was there the first term, we didn't really understand what that even looked like. Right. We didn't know what he meant when he said swamp. Okay, what do you really mean? Well, Elon Musk is showing us what the swamp is. Right. And if you watch the interview that Brett Baer did on Fox News a couple of weeks ago, where he had members of Doge there, and these guys these are smart people, and they just systematically walked everybody through what they have found, that illegals were being allowed into the country. They were given Social Security numbers. They were given credentials, and finding out that millions of them are on Medicare. And so, and you could hear gasps in the room as these guys uncovered all of this. So, the curtain's been pulled back, and it's just going to be really interesting to see if Donald Trump has the cojones to do this. Does the rest of the country have the cojones to do this and to not listen to the yipping dogs whining about this? And you think about politically the position that they've been put in. And it's like Elon Musk says all the time. So when people are complaining about Doge and what we're doing, we lay it all out. Here's what it is. Here's the money we're saving. So show us on this chart what you're not in favor of. If you're not in favor of saving money where? You're not in favor of more efficiency where? Just point that out.
Right.
I mean, politically, it's an impossible corner to get out of.
Right.
And so it's been interesting to watch to see the Democrats and the left try to get traction with anything against Doge and Donald Trump, and they are really having a time of it.
They're having a hard time.
They seem to just be going back to the old playbook. I mean, you're misogynist, you're
right.
Racist, sexist, whatever you want to call it.
It's akin to you getting into a fight with a kid in the neighborhood when we were little kids, and the bully wasn't winning the argument, and they just had nothing else to come back with, and the old reliable fallback was, well, yeah, but my dad could beat up your dad. And that's what they sound like. Well, you're a racist. Okay, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, it's so tired, and I think most of the country now has their eyes wide open to these. It's just the same old playbook.
Do you think he's going to be able to get through and do it? Do you think he's going to be able to finish what he started?
I think his legacy is going to be people now know how to take the government down. The administrative state is really the biggest enemy to, I think, America's prosperity going forward. People now, they had kind of heard that, politicians they slide money into their pocket. Well, now it's been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt. How does a guy like Joe Biden, I'm just picking on Joe Biden because I think Republicans do this as well. But how does a guy who never made, in his role as a public official, never made more than as president, probably $400,000, but before that, probably never made more than $125,000 a year. Now, around here, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Anybody living in Norfolk were like, yeah, man, I could live on $125,000. Out in Washington, D.C., that's maybe akin to $60,000 around here,
Yeah.
Yet the guy has 5 mansions and lives on the beach. How does that happen? Does anybody not just stop and go, what's going on here?
Yeah. Or AOC. She's the most recent one.
She's a bartender.
That's now a multimillionaire.
Yeah. How does that happen?
Bernie, the guy who railed against millionaires and billionaires, but now it's just the billionaires. He's a millionaire, so he can't be mad at the millionaires.
Bernie Sanders. I think I could do a really good Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump. And these oligarchs are going to take us all down.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Millionaires and the billionaires.
Billionaires and the billionaires. And Bernie, you're a billionaire. How many homes does Bernie have?
I never had a private sector job, ever.
Yeah.
That's why Bernie runs for president. Bernie knows he's not going to win the presidency. He runs and gets his own party into a corner to where they have to pay him to go away.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
That's how Bernie earns his homes. Look, Bernie, what's it going to cost to make you go away? Because you remember the last time, it was 2016 or 2016.
We got it stolen from him twice.
He would have won the Democratic primary in 16.
He would have won it in 22 if they wouldn't all dropped out and endorsed Biden.
Right. Yeah. They knew it was unwinnable. They had to get him out of the way. They had to get everybody else out of the way. Biden couldn't win a primary back in 2020. Nobody remembers that. But, yeah, he couldn't even win a primary. He was finishing 3rd and 4th in these primaries. And then in one day. And all that does is take a phone call from Barack Obama, and it goes something like this. Listen, we've been talking, and we really appreciate you running for president, but this is just not your time. And so you will step down, or you will never see the light of day in the Democratic Party. Understand? That's how that goes.
100%.
He probably made 3 or 4 phone calls before that last primary and basically cleared the deck for Uncle Joe to push him across the finish line.
That's good. We have been ending the show on a game called Would You Rather. Have you ever played anything like that before?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Bring it.
Would you rather have the ability to see 10 minutes into the future or 150 years into the future?
Oh, 150. Because I want to know if 100 years from now people are still remembering now.
Right.
Because I think these are extraordinary times. I told you guys earlier about how I'm such a nerd about the Apollo moon missions. And, at the time I was a kid, I'm like, oh, this is cool. We're walking on the moon. I didn't realize at the time what had gone into that. And now as I'm aging, I'm like, man, of all the history in the world, I got to be alive when we left the planet and actually flew somewhere else and walked on another planet, even though it was just the moon. So that hits me. And so, yeah, I would definitely want to see 150 years into the future. I would really love to see if our democracy is still strong. And I would, how do people 150 years from now look back upon this time that we've lived in? I'd
how much history has changed too, some
Yeah.
of that's already been rewritten, and
Yeah, right.
see how,
Yeah, that would be so cool. I always wanted to have a time machine in my basement when I was a kid. It would be so much fun to go back into history and watch it all over again, as a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Being very careful not to change history because, in watching Star Trek, that's a really bad thing to do. Nothing to go back to the Enterprise.
Yeah, exactly.
The Enterprise is not there.
Would you rather live in a world where everyone tells the truth, even if it hurts, or a world where no one can lie, but they often will withhold the full truth?
Yeah, the second one, because I think that there are times when the truth doesn't need to be told, and withholding certain information from certain people isn't necessarily lying. And so, yeah, I think there can be too much truth. I think there's probably a lot of things that we like to say to certain people at times. Probably best not said.
Yeah.
And I've learned, especially the last couple of years, when Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016, I was one of these Fox News rats. So I'd sit there 3 to 3.5 hours a night watching that and just sucking it up. And it was like Nebraska football. It's like if Nebraska lost, I mean, you were in this funk and depressing for, the next week. And
right.
And I woke up that morning. I was convinced on Election Day in 2016 that Hillary Clinton was going to win because she was up by about 4 points, statistically speaking, going into that. Donald Trump didn't even believe he was going to win on Election Day. And so I was just in this deep funk. I was depressed. I'm like, oh, my God, I got to get ready for 4 years of her running the country. I'm like, I just can't believe this is happening. Took the kids out to eat. The kids were still at home at that time. The boys were just finishing up college. They hadn't moved out yet, and they were really into it. We went out to eat, got home about 8 o'clock. Polls are closing. Dad, turn the TV on. I'm like, no, you guys, I can't do this.
Deal with this.
I cannot do this. I'm not. I went to bed, and I got up about 2:30 in the morning. The TV was on outside. I walked out into the living room, and I saw the flashing across the screen, Donald Trump wins the presidency. And Lucas rolled over, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And told the story about the blue wall that fell in, Wisconsin. They were worried about Pennsylvania, and he said all of a sudden Wisconsin came in and Wisconsin fell in, and then it didn't matter. It was over. So he goes, it was beautiful. But I went back to bed, came to work in a much better mood the next morning. But I promised myself I am not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to put myself through that. It's kind of like Nebraska football. I'm just not putting myself through that anymore. I still cheer for the Huskers. I love it. But I'm not into them like I was 20 years ago.
Yeah, not die hard.
No, it's just too much pressure to watch them.
Too much letdown.
Emotional
stress.
Yeah.
It just takes so much out of you. It's like, oh man, I just can't do this anymore. So, yeah.
I just went through it with Husker basketball 2 days ago.
Yeah,
probably again tonight. We'll see what happens.
Even the last the last election here, I was pretty confident Donald Trump was going to win, and I was convinced that if he didn't win, then I knew it was all rigged.
Yeah.
Because she was the absolute worst. And I don't think that Barack Obama really truly endorsed her, but they just waited too long to replace her.
Well, yeah.
And I think that they should have had a primary. And if they would have held a primary, there's no way she would have won it.
No, 100%.
My conspiracy theory is that Joe put her in there on purpose because he was getting forced out by Nancy and Barack and all these people, and this was his little knife to him, and there was nothing they could do.
It was job security.
And then I think he also voted for Donald Trump.
I think he might have.
I think him
Towards
and
the
Sure
end.
seemed like it towards the end.
those two.
After they inserted the knife in his back, it's like, Jill probably voted for him too.
She was wearing red.
Yeah, she was. And I don't think that was, and she knows.
That wasn't coincidence. I think that was all.
No, it
all
absolutely
The
was.
meeting in the White House with Joe and Trump, with Joe just a big old smile, I think is.
But
I think that's all you needed to know.
But that first debate, I mean, we were on vacation and we were traveling to Yellowstone, and that debate had happened the night before. I didn't watch it, wasn't in a position to watch it, and we turned on Clay and Buck the next day, listened to some radio feed. I couldn't believe what I was listening. I'm like, it couldn't have been that bad. And then I got to a computer. I'm like, oh my God. It really was.
It was that bad.
It was. I mean, it was over right then and there. So, yeah. Strange times we live in.
Definitely strange times. Would you rather know the exact date and time of your death or never know at all?
Oh, I don't want to know. No, I don't.
I'm the same way. I don't want to know either.
No, I don't. I do think, though, that people who do, they get a cancer diagnosis or something like that, I think there's some grace in that. You have time to make peace with the Lord. As a practicing Catholic, there is grace in that, but I don't want to be put in that spot.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah,
At all.
just let her happen.
Exactly. Would you rather be feared by all but never truly loved, or loved by all but never truly respected?
Woo! What was that first one again?
Would you rather be feared by all but never truly loved, or loved by all but never truly respected?
I think they're trying to use feared and respected in the same, as opposed to like actual afraid of, right?
Maybe.
I don't like either one of those choices, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Some of these can be kind of tough.
Yeah. I don't want to be feared by anyone.
What if we change the feared to respected? So would you rather be respected by all but never truly loved, or loved by all but never truly respected?
Yeah, the first one. I'd rather have people's respect. They don't have to love me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the deal with politics. I have some friends who are lefties. We have people who are at the radio station who tend to be left politically. We leave that at the door. There's nothing that says you can't still be friends and be respectful. That's what's really missing. I remember the days, the political races of the 1970s and 80s. Richard M. Nixon. I haven't had an opportunity to do Richard Nixon yet. But he ran against George McGovern. That's probably the first election that I really remember as a kid in 1972. But there was this exchange, but God, it wasn't visceral the way it is and personal. They stuck to the issues. Even Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter in 1980, when Reagan beat Carter. Carter did not like Ronald Reagan. He didn't respect him, this Hollywood actor running for president. I found that out later, but you go back and watch those debates. They were the issues. They were talking about the issues, and they just went back and forth. And I think there is some respect there. And it wasn't personal. I wish we could get back to that. I can have friends who have differing political opinions. We can still be friends.
Yeah, we can
and respect each other.
Yeah. I like it. Should be that way. You should be able to sit down and have a. I know
Have
they
a
always say
beer,
don't talk
talking out.
politics, but you should be able to sit down and talk about it and have a nice discourse and not have to
And
hate
agree
the
to
other person.
disagree.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree. I'm not going
I
to
feel like
change
there's
them.
a time to have a political discourse, and there's times we don't, like you said, check it at the door. We don't. We
Right.
can get
Don't even
along
talk
without even
about it.
talking about politics.
Yeah.
But then let's have a debate and have a real respectful debate, And
Yeah.
then once it's done, and then we're going to go back.
We try to
doing
make
whatever.
sure at work, especially during the elections, like, you guys, we're not going to talk about this here.
Yeah.
Go have a beer and talk about that. But, there are people that don't really care for Donald Trump here, and that's okay. That's their prerogative, and so we're not going to talk about that. Even the day after the election, we just kind of let it be.
Let it be.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good thing to do because you don't want to. I didn't even want to throw it in people's face either.
No, I
that
was
my
just
guy won
relieved.
type of thing. But
I was just relieved.
Well,
I was
right.
more
I just-
relieved and happy. I'm like,
sigh of
oh,
relief
God,
and-
thank God.
yeah. Would you rather have the ability to instantly master any skill you desire, or have a lifetime of experiences that help you gain skills but much slower?
Probably the second one. There's something cool about, figuring out for yourself and learning on your own. I think that there are dividends down the road that you can't even see. I always told our kids, I said, you don't have to like the job. I'm talking about like sacking groceries or something like that. But you will show up on time, 10 minutes early, and you're not going to leave early, and not wait around to be told to do something. Find some work to do. Keep yourself busy. And I said 80% of it's showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so just good qualities. And I said, always do your best at whatever job you have, even if you don't like it. That will always pay dividends down the road.
I wish more younger people had that in their wheelhouse.
Severely lacking.
Yeah.
There is
In the workforce, at least.
Yeah. And that's going to have to be dealt with because there are some people who are going to be holding some really important, pivotal positions who don't have a work ethic. I wish I could remember the saying, hard times create strong men. Strong men create better times or good times. Good times create weak men.
You got it right.
Weak men create bad times.
Yep.
And so it's this cycle. And so I think that, we need some, and it's tough right now. And so we need people to step up.
Well, the good thing, I think we're on the come up of that.
I hope so.
Weak times to coming up. I think.
Yeah, I hope so. But I don't know what hill some of the young people want to die on. But not showing up for work is probably not a good place to start.
Mm-mm. But they don't care.
I don't even care about that because it's just you don't have to be like where you said you don't have to wait to be told to do something. Like
No,
just
yeah, just get it
try,
done.
figure
Yeah.
something out,
Yeah, well,
make an effort, make an attempt. Because a lot of people just don't make an attempt once they.
phones
Great.
probably, and the phones don't help. Honestly, because I think people entertain themselves with their phone and just become addicted to it, that they can't lay the phone down and go put in a day's work without their phone, even an hour's work without checking their phone. And it's affected society in a much bigger way than I think even we realize.
I think people forget, there is a phone at the workplace. You can
Yes.
leave your phone somewhere else. If somebody needs to get a hold of you, they'll call the line at the
Yeah.
place of work.
I mean, gosh, when I was growing up, we'd get into our car. We didn't have a phone. We drove places.
just
we
drive.
We just drive and get there. And if you broke down,
And if you saw a gas station, you stopped and got gas.
you damn right you did. Yeah. And if you missed it, you walked. You walked. I remember coming back from it was, it was a dance in either St. Helena or Bow Valley, and got late. It was about 1:00, and we're in a friend's car, and we're driving back on a back road because there was highway construction going on, and the car just stopped. I mean, everything just went dark. Everything shut off. Lights off, nothing. And we're sitting there in a pitch dark on this gravel road. It's by now 2 a.m. Well, anyway, cell phones. We had to sit there and wait for a car to come along. It was probably at least 30 minutes before a car finally came by. We thought we'd be sitting there till sunrise. Hitch a ride with that person to get back to a farm place, to wake somebody up at 2 a.m., to call somebody to then come out and get you. And, man, we lived on the edge back in those days.
That'll never happen nowadays.
Now it's like, Paul Hughes, my news guy, he went into the Air Force. We were friends back in college. And in order for he and I to converse back in those days, he'd write a letter. It'd take 14 days to get here because he was in Germany or somewhere else. I'd write him a letter back. It'd take 14 days to get there. And now, like my daughter in Thailand or wherever the hell she was 2 years ago, grab your phone and you FaceTime her.
Yep.
And even now she lives in Denver. I feel like I see her every day.
Right.
As you're just so connected. It's amazing.
It's wild how it's definitely changed our lives in a fast track way.
And only people probably 45 or 50 years and up even remember life without phones.
Yeah.
Because they've been around now for, at least 25 years.
At least that. I remember the first bag phone my mom
Probably
had.
in the 90s.
Yeah, it was.
Mid-90s.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, 30 years.
I do remember a time of not having cell phones, though. I do. I'm old enough to at least remember that.
Right.
So.
I don't think I had one till like maybe 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And we had one in the family.
Show a rotary phone to some of these kids nowadays.
Tell them to dial a number.
What's that?
I used to remember, the thing that's hurt me on the phones is I used to remember a lot of phone numbers, and now I've got like 5 that I can remember.
I can still tell you my 2 grandmothers' phone numbers and 3 or 4 of my friends' phone numbers now.
That's why I am the disconnected ones.
Yeah. But now it's like, what's your son's phone number? I don't
Let me
know.
get my phone out.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I really couldn't tell you. I'd have to get my phone out to look at it. Yeah, it makes us lazy.
Yeah, definitely does. Definitely does. I know I only have 5 that I can remember off the top of my head. So luckily I can remember those in case something happens and I'm not by my phone.
Dale Tramp, 84993. I remember party lines. My grandfather Steffen had one of them crank phones.
Yep.
Party lines. You'd pick like Andy Griffith's phone, only this thing hung on the wall, and you'd crank it. He'd crank it, I don't know, twice for one thing and 3 times for another.
Yep.
That was 1972.
Right. Right.
Which to me seems like last week, but, not that long ago.
It was definitely, that was a time where you had different places where definitely, the rural areas did not have the same things that the big cities had. And, the gap has gotten smaller.
Yeah. The phone that I just described, the last one went out of service in 1983.
Really?
Yeah. It was somewhere in Maine or something like that.
Predated me.
Yeah. Pick up those tidbits being on the radio all those years. You remember some of that stuff.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's the end of the questions.
Okay.
We are coming to see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah. I did see that on the schedule.
Yeah, for our Swearing is Caring event.
Yeah.
It's our little Lent charity event we do every year.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. That's on April 25th at the District Event Center. Big thanks to Agri City Insurance, Nebraska Health and Wellness Clinic, Box Shop Norfolk, 402 Golf, Voodoo Tattoo, FNBO, Kim Thor Chiropractic, Neidig Farms, Hy-Vee, the Nebraska State Fair, Whisper Skate Shop, and Farm Bureau Financial Services, Zach Miller Agency.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to that. You going to swing by?
I will. I will if I can. I sure will.
We're definitely doing the radio this time because, as you said, a lot of listeners on the radio side. So.
Yeah.
Plus, we wanted to come talk to you.
Well, and what radio will do is reach somebody who's not necessarily seeking you.
Correct.
It's like you catch them in the car and I didn't know about that. Oh yeah, maybe I'll check that out. And then boom, you got a customer.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're going to go see Billy too. So we're getting to see
there you go.
Billy.
Yeah. You can come in and see the new studios. They're looking
I'm
good.
excited for that because I was in there recording my ads for insurance
right.
a couple of years ago. And it's like, it's going to be a whole new thing.
We didn't think the place looked all that bad. And one of the first things that we did though is we replaced the lighting because we didn't know how bad the lighting sucked until we got new lights. And then we realized how bad the carpet looked. Like, this looks
You can actually see it now?
Jeez, yeah. I couldn't wait to tear that carpet out. It just looked like we were working in a barn there for a few months. It's brighter. You'll find it brighter.
I'm sure I will. Sure I will. I liked the mood lighting from last time, though. That was good.
Yeah, that's about what it was, too. But as our staff aged, I can't see anything. They had to bring their own little lamps to be able to read their orders.
That's funny. Well, Jeffrey, where and when can people listen to you?
I'm on the air on News Talk WJAG Monday through Friday mornings, 6 a.m. till 8 a.m. You can listen on AM 780. Some of you know what that is, AM radio, or locally at 105.9 FM. It's it's an FM translator, which allows us to broadcast 24/7. Of course, you can go to our websites, WJAG.com, and click on Listen Live, or you can download the free Norfolk Radio app. It's in your app store. Download it to your phone. It's an orange logo. And then all you do is tap the app, and you can listen to News Talk WJAG 97.5 KEXL or 106 Kicks just with the tap of your finger.
And you can listen to you every morning. It's great listening to them. It gets me through my ride to dropping the boys off. And
appreciate it.
And you and Paul do a great job.
I only get it on the days I don't work.
Paul and I click, and that
great chemistry.
That just goes back years and years. And I always tell Paul came out of the military in 2013. He did 25 years in the U.S. Air Force, and he lived all over the world. And when he retired and came out, it was at the same time that our longtime news director, Jim Curry, left, and Paul came in and filled that role. And I told Paul, I said, you know what? I think you kept me in radio, because I think I may have left in 2015 if Paul hadn't come back into the mix, because it was so much fun again.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I credit him that.
Two friends just doing their job. Huh?
Yeah, it was fun. I remember, not to drag this on.
No, you're good.
We came up with this deal. He'd do the early morning sports before Joe Jaden would get there. So he and I would just do a little sports at like 6:30 in the morning. And one day he came to me and he goes, "Should I do hockey scores?" Oh, God, I don't know. Hockey? Tell you what. We stole this from Dan Patrick. On Dan Patrick's show, he used to do 5 good seconds of soccer. So we decided to do 5 good seconds of hockey, and I'd start the clock. So you do a quick hockey story, you have to do it in 5 seconds. You got the biggest kick out of that. And there was a friend of his from Battle Creek who used to live in Wisconsin, big hockey fan. And he said, "I never laughed so hard in my life." He goes, "You were making fun of my beloved hockey, but God, that was funny."
That's good. That's good. Oh, man. Good story. Yeah, great stories today.
Yep, I appreciate it.
I know when I texted you, you said we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, you must really be struggling. I was amused that you guys thought that somebody would find that entertaining, talking to Jeffrey Steffen. But
definitely. You've been wildly entertaining, and I knew you were going to be.
It's this microphone, man. You get that microphone in front of me, and
right?
Yeah, it does bring something out.
It does. It definitely does.
It's yeah, but hopefully I'm still just me.
You were definitely.
This is the fun Jeffrey. Now I'll go home and I probably won't be the fun Jeffrey, because I'll be tired and ready to go to bed.
Yeah, we took all your energy out.
The dog will look at me like, "God, come on, man." I was in and out of the house 3 times today. The poor dog, you walk in, the dog's like, "You're home, you're home, you're home." I go and change my clothes, and I leave in 5 minutes, and I can just hear him in there swearing, "You son of a." I had to go out.
Right. Well, huge thanks to my co-host, Vance Neidig. Without him, the show would not be what it is. Huge thank you to Jeffrey Steffen. We really appreciate you coming on.
Can I do this again sometime?
Definitely. You're welcome to come on anytime. And if you want to, we have another show that's just politics and news.
Oh, man.
You can come and
okay.
You can come and do that, too, if you want.
You guys let me know.
If you enjoyed yourself, we'll have you back anytime.
This is fun. Yeah.
Good. Well, huge thanks for that. Keep on the lookout for more great episodes, and we'll see you guys next week.